All right. Hello, everybody. Across the world, across the nation, wherever you are, this is not Coast to Coast AM, and I am not George Norrie. Welcome, everybody. This is our little show, and we've got Dominic sitting in with us for a little while. He's going to be with us just for a short while until he can't take it anymore. It's late for him. And we've got Bart and we've got Amy. So hello, everybody.
Hello, Aaron, and hello, all of the people listening in.
Hello, world.
Okay, guys, it's November 24th, 2017. First announcement, our dear friend and co-host Ian will not be joining us today and indefinitely. He is taking on a new job and it's going to conflict with his time with us. So he's going to take a step back for a little while, and Bart here, a good friend of ours, is going to happily step up and take his place. So we want to say welcome, Bart, and good luck, Ian. So we also announcement. I want to say that this Sunday in 2 days we've got Annie Logical. We're going to be talking about the 5G network and the AI software and how horrible our future looks under that umbrella. So join us Sunday. Dominic will be with us then, and Ian may be popping in. Obviously, it'll be Sunday, so he won't be working. And Ian has an open invitation. He can join us anytime uninvited. So how's everybody doing? What's going on out in the world today?
More psyops?
Black Friday.
Black and Blue Friday.
You know, I've been looking at a lot of those videos of people beating each other up over crap. And I can't help but think, knowing how much they script in our world, that perhaps these are shows as well. Because I've never seen any of this behavior, ever. I've seen people rushing in initially, but then that's about it. I don't know. Maybe I've just led a somehow sheltered life.
Well, you admit that you don't watch a whole lot of TV, right?
True.
Well, there you go. So I do watch a lot.
Well, what's that got to do with me not seeing people at the stores when I go to the stores behaving like that?
Well, it's a narrowing of focus, right? What are the chances that you're going to?
What I'm observing.
I think what she means is in real life, and that's actually a good question. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. Everybody in the chat, has anybody listening, and leave me a comment after the video uploads. Let me know. Have you ever personally witnessed any of that horrific behavior that we sometimes see on the TV about Black Friday violence and Walmarts and shit like that? You know, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if it was real. It also wouldn't surprise me if it was fake, if some of it was fake.
I was thinking exactly the same. I was thinking exactly the same. Maybe there are some incidents, but yeah, why wouldn't? If they're going to stage events where they fake people's deaths, then why wouldn't they fake other psyops that you're going to see on TV? Which is interesting. That's what you said then, Bart, was, well, you don't watch much TV. I've seen it on TV. I don't watch much TV either, hardly at all, and I haven't seen it. But yeah, very interesting. Has anyone got a first-hand account of seeing that behavior?
Have we seen any YouTube videos? I mean, do you know what I mean? That would be a good little litmus test, wouldn't it? I think.
Well, I have seen YouTube videos, but they've all been like compilations of these incidents that they've gleaned off the media and I presume other YouTube channels, which who knows who they are and that sort of thing. But I haven't actually, I've never met anyone who's even mentioned that gee, I was at the store and oh my gosh, the mess that got started. Never anyone's ever said that to me. Well, it's always, did you see what was on the news?
I think it's a really good
squeaky wheel phenomenon. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So if out of 10,000 stores, there's an event where something happened, well, they're not going to bother showing the 9,999 where nothing happened and people behaved normally. They're going to show the exotic one where something weird happened.
The one where they want to promote, isn't it? That's what they want to promote, the frenzy, the shopping frenzy.
It's like car races and car crashes. You know, if you watch a lot of car racing, then you've seen a lot of car racing without car crashes. But if you don't watch a lot of car racing, there's a good chance that you have seen footage of way more car crashes in relation to car racing. And I think anyone.
Yeah, I get your point, Bart. I do. I think that has some validity.
Yeah, my argument is not that, because this is what we explore here, right? Whether these, and this is the gap that gets exploited, I think, which is that normal behavior and then aberrant behavior. So aberrant behavior in the juxtaposition of in relation to normal behavior is what catches our eye.
But who sets the norms? When you say a norm, a social norm, who sets those norms? Who decides what's the norm? You know,
of course, that is controlled as well. But I would think that everybody has a sense of a normal process of walking down the street from here to there.
And the normal going to the store and buying something.
Normal is so normal that it's mundane that it's very quickly.
The thing that sprung to mind, Bart, when you said that about you know, the cherry picking, they picked the one event, and Amy said about it as well. You know, could it be this? Could it be that? The thing that I thought was interesting was you said about TV, and then I thought, well, every time you see one of these supposed scrums, one of these, you know, these fights, it's nearly always for a television, isn't it? They always have a picture of a guy walking out with a huge, great television.
That's a great point. Yep. It's
yep. Which considering, you know, I figure if it's over a specific product over and over again, that's going to increase my probabilities that a lot of these are faked.
Mm-hmm.
Because why would it only be over TVs? You know,
but it often is, isn't it?
I mean,
you know, whenever I see that, they ran.
I think that's a really, you know, wonderful observation. It's
no, absolutely. I mean, we are talking about
the theft of stolen money.
No,
sorry, go ahead.
Enslavement, isn't it? We forget. I mean, I don't watch TV. I haven't had a TV for years. I've never paid a license fee, which we have to pay in this country. In Britain, you have to buy a license for your television. Still, in 2017, you buy a license for a box of lights. Yeah, let that fucking set in for a minute. In Britain, we pay for. Well, I don't, but you're supposed. I do. Of course, I do. I'm a good law-abiding citizen. So yeah, I'm lying. I'm making that up. Someone who isn't me doesn't pay for the television license, but you do have to have a license for your television in Britain. Zig fucking Heil.
Well, as if they don't get enough advertising dollars, they want you to pay for your propaganda right and proper, no, don't they?
It's the BBC.
Well, I think that's part of the larger hook. It's this other layer of when you are compelled to pay for something, you have this feeling of ownership of it and a responsibility and a complicity towards participating in it. And this is why a lot of times there's been a lot of sociological studies where someone will be offered something for free and they're so skeptical about it that they'll turn it down a lot of the time. Yeah. Whereas if they're offered it for either
50% off,
a slight discount or a fair market value, they'll gobble it up.
Or 33% off. They love that. Do they do that a lot in America? 33% off.
No, but what we do get over here a lot is 33% more. You know, they'll add.
Yes.
You know, they'll increase the package size, and they'll, you know what I mean, as a sale.
33 more, 33% more. Yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah, you get a lot of 33% more. And just so I just want to repeat this, what we were talking about right before we went, you know, live. I was at the freaking PetSmart today on Black Friday. They have, you know, sales, and we like to go and get the expensive stuff. Like, you know, big boxes of cat litter and big bags of dog food. And on our way out, we noticed there was a box of, we were going to get some dog biscuits, right? Dog treats. And I noticed on one of the boxes of treats, it said 330 treats. And, you know, it's just people like us. You see that and you just can't help but notice.
Very true. Very true. It pops right out once you're aware of it. It's like, oh yeah, there's that 33.
I think there's these like really important numbers that you almost never see expressed in advertising. Like, I don't know when the last time I saw 19% off or on or more. I've never, I don't think I've ever seen 23% off or more.
Right, exactly. Right.
Or 25 for that matter. You never see 25.
No, I think 25 because it's a quarter. I have seen that.
Yeah, I have seen 25.
I've seen 33% off a hell of a lot more than I've seen 25% off.
Yeah. Well, I think 33 makes a lot of sense. It's a third.
Yeah.
Hey guys, let me let me do this before Dominic, because Dominic's not going to be with us the whole night. It's late for him, and we understand. But there is something that I do want to go over with you guys, and it's not terribly long, but it's not terribly short either. I got an email from Mom, and dear old Mom, and it's just something that she found somewhere along her internet travels. It's just one of those very interesting. The title of the email is Very Interesting Predictions, and so check this out, okay? This is like a little article that someone had written up on predictions for our very, very near future. And they're not conspiratorial, but we can certainly pick them apart, okay? Because I don't necessarily agree with most of what's on this list, but check this out, all right? Subject, very interesting predictions. Number one, in 1998, Kodak had 170,000 employees and sold 85% of photo paper worldwide. Within just a few years, their business model disappeared and they went bankrupt. What happened to Kodak will happen in a lot of industries in the next 5 to 10 years, and most people won't see it coming. Did you think in 1998 that 3 years later you would never take pictures on film again? Yet digital cameras were invented in 1975. Now keep that in mind as I move forward. Yeah. Interesting, right? Now keep that in mind. I'm going to come back to that. So it says, yeah, digital cameras were invented in 1975. Their first ones only had 10,000 pixels, but followed Moore's law. So with all exponential technologies, it was a disappointment for a time before it became way superior and became mainstream only in a few short years. It will now happen again, but much faster with artificial intelligence, health, autonomous and electric cars, education, 3D printing, agriculture, and jobs. Welcome to the fourth industrial revolution. Welcome to the exponential age. Now, before I get into the rest of this list, let's talk about that 1975, that digital cameras were created in 1975. You had something to say? Go ahead.
I was just letting that sink in because I've got a camera with film and I still very occasionally take pictures with film, but I had no idea that digital cameras were around as early as 75.
Yeah, that.
You know, I was listening to a radio interview just the other day, and they were talking to a moon hoax researcher, an old guy who was an old photographer, and he was talking about the film that they were using on the Apollo moon landings. With
the Hasselblad cameras that Hasselblad, when asked by NASA, turned around. Hasselblad asked NASA, well, how did you modify the camera to be able to work in this environment, and NASA said, "Oh, we can't tell you that. That's top secret."
That's national security. Yeah. So the interesting thing that the guy was saying, and this sort of ties in with this article I just read that said 1975 was the invention of digital cameras. He said, in 1969, when we went to the moon, we didn't have digital technology, digital camera technology. He said they were using film cameras. So how did they broadcast what Neil Armstrong walking down the ladder and all the pictures and the video that they sent back? How did they do that?
Magic.
They faked it. They faked.
I think they had radio broadcasts though.
But they were using film camera. A film camera requires development before you get to see the pictures.
True. So they can't have had a film camera that broadcasts.
That's right.
Right away. It just doesn't work.
There's bigger issues there as well, isn't there? Because what if you think about what camera film is, another word for camera film is light sensitive paper, and there's a lot of what's another term for light, which is radiation. Well, there's a lot of radiation in space, isn't there?
All right, let's also consider that in 1969 that television broadcasts, they were also using film camera, and yet they were able to do live broadcasts on television, news broadcasts, right?
Yep. So
I'm not sure how they did it. Maybe they could do it.
Were they live? Are you sure they were actually live that early?
The very first TV shows were live, and I don't think they were. I think that they already had a camera that could send broadcast signals.
When did they do the hoax on the American public with H.G. Wells and the War of the Worlds? When was that?
Oh, that was in the 30s. But that was over the radio.
Yeah, on the radio, which was obviously still, radio is still just as relevant now, isn't it, really?
Well, I think radio is also making a comeback. I think what we think of radio.
Internet radio is making a comeback.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, through the internet.
Yeah, but well, in several different ways. One thing that I was researching a while back and has just slipped back onto my radar, not to make a bad pun there, but is radionics. Have you folks ever looked into that?
No.
Doesn't sound familiar. While I got the floor, I just want to interject this. It was Sunday, October 30th, 1938.
War of the Worlds broadcast?
Yes.
Oh, speaking of interesting dates, and this is probably not significant at all. It's just something that I noticed, and it's completely off topic. Here in Atlanta, they just demolished the Braves stadium because the new stadium right next door, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, is all done, and so they had a big demolition this past Monday, and they broadcasted 7 different angles and all that, and they were telling you some interesting facts about the stadium. And one thing that popped out at me was that it was November 22nd was the groundbreaking ceremony for when they constructed the original Braves Stadium. November 22nd. That's the year. That's the day Kennedy was shot, wasn't it?
I don't honestly know.
Wasn't it November 22nd? I think.
1961. Yeah.
All right. So let me get on with this article because I want Dom to help us pick this apart. This is interesting, and some of these are probably not true. All right. Let me see. Number 2, software will disrupt most traditional industries in the next 5 to 10 years. Uber, this is number 3, is Uber is just a software tool. They don't own any cars, and they are now the biggest taxi company in the world.
Millionaire app owners, isn't it?
And number 4 is Airbnb is now the biggest hotel company in the world, although they don't own any properties. Artificial intelligence, computers become exponentially better in understanding the world. This year, a computer beat the best Go player in the world 10 years earlier than expected. And I don't know what Go player is. Anybody know what that is?
Yes, Go is an ancient Oriental game.
Chinese, isn't it? Go.
I think it may be Chinese. Yes,
Okay.
and I used to play it and was pretty good at it, but I probably was not the world's best.
When did Kasparov?
I think there's a Western like Parker Brothers or somebody put out a similar game called Othello. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
I played that too,
So
and I was pretty good at it.
Yeah. So it's discs that on one side are white and black, and it's about Well,
when you place your piece, you have to place it next to a piece of your opponent's color, and if you can, and you have to be able to turn over at least one of your opponent's pieces between a piece of your own and the piece you just put down, and you can go in all 8 directions. Theoretically, if there's any pieces that are between your piece, and then you flip them to your color, and then your opponent gets to put their piece down and see if they can trap any of your pieces in the same process. And the person with the greatest number of pieces on the board at the end of the game wins.
Let me throw this out there. A couple of comments in the chat box here. Outsider and Broadsword were saying that War of the Worlds was one of the first psyops or beta tests. Outsider said, to see how much the sheep would believe and depend on the broadcast.
That's why I brought it up. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Considering that World of Worlds was 1938, what I was wondering is, because I don't remember.
World War II was the next year, wasn't it? World War II started almost exactly a year later.
And 39, that's correct. That's correct.
Yep.
Well, here's what I find, and I don't remember offhand, and maybe somebody can look it up or remind me in the chat. When was the Brookings report, the Brookings Institute report about how they said that, public disclosure would, destroy society and collapse religion? And remember that you know what I'm talking about?
In terms of UFO disclosure.
Yeah.
I believe that was 1959.
It was, I was going to say, but it was pre-60s, wasn't it?
Okay, so that's 20 years after World of Worlds. Okay, that's interesting. It makes sense. I mean, because World of Worlds really stirred some people up, and it's not surprising that the Brookings Institute came up with the conclusion that they did.
Well, apparently it was actually, I think it was put together in 59, but apparently it was released in 1960.
Broadsword wants a real Illuminati card game set for Christmas. 300 plus on eBay right now. Are you sure it's not 330?
Yeah, really.
All right, so here's where the article gets really interesting. Number 6. In the U.S., young lawyers already don't get jobs because of IBM's Watson. You can get legal advice. So far, more or less basic stuff, but within seconds, with a 90% accuracy compared with 70% accuracy when done by humans.
Isn't that the same with doctors, like online doctors?
They go on to that. So if you study law, stop immediately. There will be 90% fewer lawyers in the future. Only omniscient specialists will remain.
Yes, that sounds like a good thing.
I know, right?
Bring on the New World Order.
I know. Who could? Right.
We'll take all the other shit.
This is why I'm actually high on AI instead of dreading it and fearing it. I am looking at, okay, yes, there's all the stuff that's scary. There's all the stuff that makes us nervous. But I think that a lot of that is our knee-jerk reactions. I'm reminded of an article that I remember seeing around. This was in the early days of the automobile, when automobiles were not that fast. And this article stated very clearly that humans were not meant to travel at these kind of speeds. Once humans were traveling faster than 15 miles an hour, complete insanity and mental collapse is
that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. as far as I'm concerned about the AI, you know, I'm sorry, but I just can't see how it can be any better than the people who program it.
That's actually where I that's kind of the point of AI, is that it will become better than the people who program it.
Well, if it is never offered the concept of ethics, what then?
It will derive its. I think that there's a chance that it will derive its own ethics, and those ethics will be potentially far more robust and responsible than the majority of human ethics. Because, and I'll tell you why, the majority of human ethics suck.
Let's come back to that.
No, I'm not saying the idealized best form of the ethics suck. I'm talking about humans' actual ability to apply ethics.
I mean,
when was the first time that we saw an AI? When was the first time anyone saw the first concept of the AI?
2001.
No, get real.
Maybe that wasn't the real. I don't know. Maybe it was. Anyway,
I would say it was. I would say it was in the plains of Africa and Eurasia and India when early hominids ingested mushrooms. That was the first encounter.
Okay, we'll leave the wacky stuff out for now. We'll leave the wacky stuff out for now. I was meaning literally, when were we introduced to when were we as humans introduced to the modern concept of AI? Well, that was 1927, wasn't it? Metropolis,
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
1927. That was, you know, you can watch parts of that film now. I don't know if you're familiar with it. You can watch that. Yep. You watch that film now, and that is as 1984 as 1984.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So do they plan 100 years in advance? You know how?
No. I think it's smart, artsy people exploring smart, artsy things, and the fact that these things are inevitable.
Bullshit, man. Come on, smart artsy people doing smart things, putting a fucking pentagram over an AI, a cyborg that still looks like a cyborg now, because Beyonce went and dressed up as it a couple of years ago, didn't she? The cyborg from Metropolis. I can't remember the name. It was probably Lucifer.
Sure,
you can't tell me that's just smart folk. I'm sorry. No,
which side are you arguing? The smart, artsy people of today emulating something that was revolutionarily smart and artsy 100 years ago?
No, I'm saying more than smart and artsy. I'm saying it was social engineering. I'm asking the question, did they know back then that now in this century we would be debating? Only this very day or yesterday, Saudi Arabia bought the first AI robot thing, didn't they?
And then gave it citizenship.
And then gave it citizenship and has more.
Women still can't drive cars.
Yeah, you got it, Aaron. That's it. Yep.
They gave a woman.
If they're showing you that, they've got a shitload more under the table that they're not showing you. Far more.
No doubt. That's how
it's that's standard procedure. We know that they have technology that is way many years. Some estimates are 75 or 100 years ahead of what they release.
I urge anyone that's listening to this now to go and look at the images of the robot from the 1927 film Metropolis, and I think you'll be quite surprised.
Well, listen, Joe Quick asked earlier in the chat, he said, have you guys ever read or heard that the very invention of television was kept under wraps, and government did tons of research before it was released to the masses? They knew full well it could be manipulated to sow public opinion, and it was kept top secret for a very long time. Now, I don't know how long. That doesn't surprise me even in the slightest little bit, considering what they know about alpha brain state and the flicker rate of the screen as the images and scene changes. And I'll even go you one further. If anybody has a TV and they watch TV, do this. Turn all the lights off in your house, and then put your back to the television and watch the wall. Watch how the wall is illuminated when the scene changes. Watch how the room itself, the entire room, it's almost like a fucking strobe light. Every time the scene changes, it goes to a bright white flash before it actually changes scenes. And you can,
Aaron, you know about the conspiracy with television that when Logie Baird was actually inventing it, they were trying to break through to the other side. They were trying to talk to spirits. That was what supposedly the first televisions were, because they were part of that. Well, he was a Freemason, John Logie Baird, wasn't he, for starters? High-ranking Freemason. And that was when all the aristocracy of Britain were having seances and trying to create ectoplasm, etc.
Spiritism, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was rife.
Yeah, fascinating era, and that hardly ever gets talked about.
Yeah, Zach is reminding us that the SR-71 Blackbird was developed in the 50s, and it wasn't public until the 80s. So there's 30 years right there.
And it still looks like science fiction today, doesn't it? It still
sure
looks
does.
Like
it sure does.
Put a few more fins on and chuck it in a Star Wars movie.
All right, let me carry on with this article here. This is going to get interesting. So this IBM Watson is already giving you free legal advice, and it's 90% accuracy. Watson already helps nurses diagnose cancer. It's 4 times more accurate than human nurses. Facebook now has a pattern recognition software that can recognize faces better than humans. In 2030, here's a prediction. In 2030, computers will become more intelligent than humans. Maybe. I wouldn't. Well, they're probably today. It depends on what computer and what human you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that today compared to some humans. Here, number 8. This is This is where I take a little departure. Autonomous cars. In 2018, the first self-driving cars will appear for the public. Around 2020. The complete industry will start to be disrupted. You won't want to own a car anymore. You will call a car with your phone. It will show up at your location, drive you to your destination. You will not need to pay for the driven distance and can be productive while driving. The very young children of today will never get a driver's license and will never own a car.
That's bloody sad, because I tell you, there's nothing I love more than driving.
I don't think it's true.
I think that it will become true. I think that is, I mean, maybe on very rural areas, but if you think they've already, the whole purpose of the Google Maps thing and the Google car is to map out these roads everywhere, isn't it?
Yes. And I don't doubt that there will be lots of self-driving electric cars. And if I'm not mistaken, France has already passed legislation banning gas-powered vehicles from the inner city of Paris, I think.
Yeah, that happened in London. That's happening in London. We've also got, they're getting, I think it's by 2024, we're going to get rid of all diesel cars will be gone.
Well, check it out. Here's where I take a major departure from this idea that nobody's going to own a car. Because I'm a contractor, right? If you just need to go to the show, you want to go to the movies, or maybe you got to go to work or whatever, which by the way is going to be problematic as it is, people going to and from work. For me as a contractor, the number one problem I see with autonomous vehicles, and I can see this never, ever, ever happening, ever.
Never say never, mate. Never say never.
Allow me to explain. Have you ever had a plumber come to your house? Of course you have. He shows up in a van that's full of tools and equipment and materials.
Yep.
No fucking plumber in the world, no roofer, no carpenter, nobody in the contracting industry. Even the small guy who comes out to do a carpet repair on your house, right? You want to have one independent guy come out and install a room of carpet or fix some tile. Guess what? This is not going to happen. I'm not going to fucking call a car or a truck. I'm not going to load up all my tools, equipment, and materials only to unload it when I'm done at the end of the day. That's not happening.
I can debunk that in 30 seconds flat, maybe less.
I'll give you 33 seconds.
33 seconds, okay. Within 50 years, there'll be robots that'll be just replacing the elements of your pod.
I dare you to make a robot that's going to come and install my carpet.
it won't install your carpet. You'll be in prefabricated boxes that are manufactured by Apple and McDonald's and Starbucks. And they'll just replace the whole unit. New unit. There you go. In 50 years.
I'm going to jump in. I think that you could probably scan the archives, find other such articles that heralded the eventual and right around the corner demise of the book, right? The book is dead because everybody is going to have a Kindle, everybody is going to have a computer, everybody is going to have this and that. Well, what ends up happening is more books than ever are published, and more books than ever are purchased and traded and treasured and kept, and so it's a both and scenario. I think it's just about the writer of the article has to settle on some solid proclamations, but they haven't really thought it through. It's for the soundbite culture. It's for people just to read and move on with their lives and oh, this is coming. This is around the corner. Great. They don't actually. I don't think anybody actually takes it all that seriously.
I will say I don't know about the book thing because I abhor trying to lie down and read a screen. I like my book. I like my paper. I like it's easier on the eyes.
It definitely is easier on
the eyes. It helps me, you know, because I fall asleep to a book every night. And if I had the screen there, it would just keep me jittery and irritated.
Exactly. So, well, it's blue light bombarding your eyeballs.
Yes.
But I think
that's my point. Is that anybody sort of high on new technology whose sort of job or they feel that their calling is to herald this new technology and all of its transformative beneficial qualities that everybody is just going to gobble up. They're missing a sort of down homeness. I think there's like just to give another example, there's now a mass migration out of the cities of people who can afford to move out of the cities back out into the countries to start little independent farms and do things in sustainable and organic ways. It's these waves, these feedback loops are occurring. But I'm just saying, anybody can. If they want to beat a drum, they'll grab a drum and start beating it. That's the point I'm making. Doesn't mean you have to like their song or listen to them.
Okay, so let me carry on here. Autonomous cars, 2018.
When was this written, Aaron? When was this written? What you're reading from?
I honestly, let me see. I really don't know. Mom sent it to me 2 days ago. And honestly, it's just, there's nothing here except for the text of the article itself. And I'm very sorry, but I tried logging into my email on my computer and it wants me to sign in, and I recently changed the password to which.
And that's a pain in the ass, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. And
how do these people manage like having 20 accounts? You know, all these channels that you see, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do they manage running like so many channels? I just don't get it. It's so much hassle.
Let's see. The complete industry will start to be disrupted. Less cars. All right. It says after it says your kids will never own a car. It says it'll change the cities because, of course, we know that's already happening. With the smart cities being built, and we've got these city centers that live, work, and play centers.
Got an echo, Aaron.
I know.
It'll go.
Okay.
somebody has the chat open. Says it'll change the cities because we will need 90 to 95% less cars for that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe we're going to need 90 to 95% less cars.
Unless we've got 90% less people.
Exactly. I was just thinking that.
We can only hope.
Yeah, right? that way it works. Okay.
I gotta love easy solutions. That work on paper. And I think, hey, let's put this plan into action, but let's presume, presuppose that within 10 years we'll be able to accomplish this mass eradication of people. Oh, okay. Well, let's put that. Let's assume that, and then move forward with our plan. Well,
yeah, but look at it this way. When the first time I probably ever saw a driverless car in a film was in Total Recall, which was in about the mid-'80s, something like that. And I can remember at the time thinking, wow, that's just so science fiction. And yet here we are, here we are with driverless cars. So it's difficult and it's easy to predict the future, isn't it?
So it says we can transform parking lots, the parking lots into parks, right? It says 1.2 million people die each year in car accidents worldwide. We now have one accident every 60,000 miles or 100,000 kilometers. With autonomous driving, that will drop to one accident in 6 million miles. That'll save 1 million lives worldwide every year. Okay, so that may be true. If the majority of people are in autonomous cars, chances are there will be less accidents. You won't have assholes out there. You won't have drunk drivers out there. Fair enough.
But you will have hackers, won't you? And any piece of software
right.
being hacked.
Yep. There's always some.
And you'll have people who are in control of the car.
Okay, here's one I don't agree with.
They want to stop you and all that.
Get rid of.
So here's another one I don't agree with. Most car companies will doubtless become bankrupt. Traditional car companies try the evolutionary approach and just build a better car, while tech companies, Tesla, Apple, Google.
Hold on, if it's going to be evolutionary, don't they have to do it through random mutation? Doesn't it?
So it says
design.
Tech companies like Tesla, Apple, Google will do the revolutionary approach and build a computer on wheels. Now, I don't see that as true. I think most car companies will eventually adapt, especially the big ones. They will absolutely adapt, and they will compete. And if we got to replace, I don't know how many billion fucking cars are on the road worldwide. Tesla, Apple, and Google are not going to build that many cars on their own. Sorry, we're going to need a few other companies. So I don't know if that one's true. Next one says, many engineers from Volkswagen, Audi are completely terrified of Tesla. Okay, fair enough.
Bullshit. That's a bollocks. Are they terrified of Tesla? That man's a clown.
Everybody's terrified, though, Dom. Anytime if you're announce that, but
what language do you use, isn't it? Terrified.
No, I understand, but I think the journalists of today, as irresponsible as they are, they'll bandy around that term whenever they can sneak it in.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's just part of the. It's part of the modern lingo.
We're talking about engineers, and in a sense, you can see, if Audi and Volkswagen are not doing anything to develop the autonomous or electric cars and get on that bandwagon, you can see that some of these engineers for some of these companies would they would in fact fear the oncoming transformation that their own company is not taking part in. So maybe that's true. I don't know.
Even though
they need to be aware of it. They need to be aware of it, weary of it, but are they fearing and are they terrorized by it? This is more journalistic, hyperbolic language.
Yep.
I wouldn't take that too seriously.
Okay, good observation. Number 9, insurance companies will have massive trouble because without accidents, the insurance will become 100 times cheaper. Their car insurance business model will disappear.
I often wonder how they're going to deal with insurance and licenses and whatnot.
What about municipalities? What about tickets?
Now you're into it. Now the insurers and reinsurers,
and how they take. I mean, literally, how are they going to sink money from you? How are they going to take the money from you?
Right, exactly.
The threat, right? So this I think my dad had pointed out. This was a couple of years ago with the whole healthcare debate, right? He goes, "This is not about healthcare. This is about healthcare finance. It has nothing to do with healthcare itself. It has nothing to do with what services are going to be provided to people in terms of health. This is who and how is it going to be paid for." That was 99% of the game.
Of course,
it's
naturally.
Sick care. It's sick care. We'll take care of you when you're sick, but we don't care whether you.
Exactly, but unless voices come to the forefront that make that sort of idea better known and more upfront, then they can play that shell game forever.
How about if we get rid of money by getting free energy out there, and then the only motivation will be health care?
I think that's one of the noblest things to pursue. I will agree with you up and down the line or whatever.
I'm pro cash, man. I'm pro cash. I hope we always keep cash in our pockets.
Why do we need cash if we don't need money of any sort, Tom? I'm not talking.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, okay. Hear me out. I'm pro cash while the current credit system and debit system is in operation.
Absolutely.
I'll just clarify that. But
I say we need to get rid of it's antiquated. We don't need it anymore. We've got tech that will eliminate the need to account for our energy so that we can survive on this planet, which is our planet that they stole from us.
Number 10, real estate will change because if you can work while you commute, people will move further away to live in a more beautiful neighborhood.
But so many people work from home now anyway, don't they?
That's right.
And more people will continue to work. All office work will eventually be office homework.
See, I think the author of this article probably knew nothing about Agenda 21 and Agenda 30 and the push to get people out of the urban areas or out of the rural areas and into the urban cities, stacked and packed.
Probably.
No, but if you think about it very much, you can see it. Well, you obviously not in your silly little country with no history, but in the Industrial Revolution in Britain, they did the opposite. They drew everyone off their farms. They took all the peasants off their farms and drew them into cities. They took the land off because up until that point, nearly everyone British peasant was a landowner. Everyone was living self-sufficiently to an extent and just having their taxes robbed off of them. Which is
hey Dom. Yeah. Dom, I'm so sorry your country is so fucked up, man.
It is so fucked up. Way more fucked up than America.
Well, now hold on. It's the whole planet. The whole planet is fucked up because we've got psychopaths in control here.
Yeah, but I will say again at this point, at least
profiteer.
At least we live in first world slave farms. At least we live in first world. We live in the good slave farms.
I guess we're better wage slave situation than some places.
Hey, like it or not, we're the best kept slaves in history, guys.
We're the best kept slaves in history. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I was flying over Greenland.
I guess.
Flying from California to Italy one time. We went over Greenland, and I couldn't help but look down and think, that's not so bad. Yeah, it's icy. It's cold. It's pretty isolated, but I don't know. I could see myself living in a little hut.
You guys are gonna love this next one here. Not the next one, but the one right after. First one is electric cars will become mainstream about 2020. And that's probably going to, I don't know, that'll probably be true. They're already working on that in some cities like Paris and, like Dominic said, in London. Cities will be less noisy, blah, 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 blah. Cars will run on electricity. Number 12, here we go. I know Amy and everybody's going to have issue with this one. Electricity will become incredibly cheap and clean. Solar production has been on an exponential curve for 30 years, but you can now see the burgeoning impact. Who wants to go first on that?
Bullshit.
Oh my gosh. Okay, in the first
I'm going
place,
up for smoke.
the production of solar energy, the production of the things that collect it is extremely dirty. Let's start with that. It's nasty, nasty. And second of all, that you know, they keep hiding the stuff that will give us real free energy. And meanwhile, if you do get solar or anything like that, then they tax you to the point where it's more cost effective not to go that way. So I'm thinking that we could scratch that one right off the list until we get free energy out to everyone.
As well. Same for wind turbines.
Yep, same damn thing.
The cost of manufacturing them is hideous. The amount of energy used to make one of those wind turbines. Yeah, the energy deficit on a wind turbine.
But the thing is, the wind turbines are nowhere near as dirty to produce. I mean, the stuff they used for the solar panels, you know, the production of them puts out an awful lot of nasty stuff into the environment.
Hardcore mining for all of it. It's all being mined, isn't it, and transported halfway around the world. Some of it's assembled in China and then it's shipped over to America to be finished, and then it might be shipped back to Europe to be put in place. And that is the energy trail that you look for any of these things, whether they're solar panels, wind turbines.
There is
so
that.
But they have to pay off that energy debt before they're giving you any so-called free energy, don't they? And then they might go down, just as they're about to pay off that energy deficit of putting that instrument in place, whether it's a solar panel or a wind turbine. Before they've paid off that energy deficit, they might well break down, and then they're in a negative, they're in a negative equity situation again, aren't they? That's their main inefficiency, is the amount of energy it costs to make them before they produce that energy deficit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of dirty production
as well. Oh yeah.
The panels are particularly negative in the amount of junk. There's a word I'm looking for, and unfortunately tonight it is not coming to my head. Yes. There's a lot of toxic stuff that is produced in the production of the solar panels.
That's right.
Whereas with the wind turbines, yes, you've got the mining and the yada, 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 but there's nothing particularly toxic in their production. So you wind up with something just really, really yucky in the end, irrespective of how much sun power you're accumulating. And in the meantime, you've got something like electrogravitics, which can draw energy cleanly, 24/7, anywhere, being hidden, suppressed. We can't have it. They'll deny, in some cases they'll deny they have it, but there's enough out there, enough documentation out there to establish that, well, yes, they do have it.
Amy, do you know when solar cells or photovoltaic cells were first discovered?
I have no idea. I know I've known about them pretty much all my life, so...
1954.
Explains why.
I'm guessing.
As early as 1839.
Yeah, that I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised.
Antoine Caesar Becquerel exposed a chemical battery to the sun to see if it produced voltage. This first conversion of sunlight to electricity was 1% efficient.
Well, that probably isn't what we want, but yeah.
Well, you know,
that's why I'm not surprised that it was that far back, because I do know that, even when I was a little runt, I do remember discussing solar energy collection with my dad, as opposed to electrogravitic energy collection, which was, given that it's more energy out than you put in, it's 100+% efficient. So yeah. At any rate.
Okay, so it says last year, with more solar energy was installed worldwide than fossil. Energy companies are desperately trying to limit access to the grid to prevent competition from home solar installations, but that simply cannot continue. Technology will take care of that strategy. That may be true. With cheap electricity comes cheap and abundant water. Desalination of salt water now only needs 2 kilowatt hours per cubic meter at 25 cents. We don't have scarce water in most places. We only have scarce drinking water. Imagine what would be possible if anyone can have as much clean water as they want for nearly no cost.
Aaron, do you live in Georgia? Is it Georgia, the state you live in?
Yeah.
Georgia? Are you allowed to collect rainwater in Georgia? You're allowed to collect rainwater. Isn't your government nice? Aren't they nice? Allowing you to collect something that falls from the sky.
Exactly.
Well done, American government of Georgia.
No, if I'm not mistaken, there are places in California and places in New Jersey where you are not allowed to collect rainwater.
Those are some laws that are on the books, and my hope is that the majority of folks will look at that, will continue to keep looking at that and going, "That's insane."
What the fuck? Well, I'll tell you what's also insane is, following up on that, is the CEO of Nestle, one of the most vile fucking corporations out there. He wants to, trademark water, doesn't he? It's a product.
Yes. He's slime, and I'll tell you something. I will not buy anything from that company, period, under any circumstances. The end.
Rightly so.
Number 15, health. The Tricorder X. I don't know why it says price, because, by the way, there's a couple of typos in this article. It seems that all the editors have been fired from all of them. Tricorder X price will be announced this year. There are companies that will build a medical device called the Tricorder, from Star Trek, as we know. That works your phone. Okay, I assume they mean that works with your phone. That works your phone.
Bursts of radioactive radiation.
It takes your retina scan, your blood sample, and your breath into it. Why would it need your retina scan?
To identify who you are.
No, when optometrists or opticians look at your eyes, they can the eyes are not the windows to the soul, but maybe the windows to your physical health. So yeah, they can tell a lot about your health.
Yeah, possibly.
Definitely.
It goes on to say it then analyzes 54 biomarkers that will identify nearly any disease. It will be cheap. So in a few years, everyone on this planet will have access to world-class medical analysis nearly for free. Goodbye, self-serving medical practitioners and establishments.
Oh, they've got that covered, because
I'm going to say no.
They've already trademarked all the diseases you're going to get. They're going to give you the diseases, and then you pay for the medicine to cure the diseases that they've given you in the first place. Simple. Think like a psychopath.
I'm going to say that is not. No.
Try and think like a psychopath.
No one is going to have.
Wasn't it found out?
Unless they've got the money to buy it. If you don't have the money to buy the best, you're not going to get it. You're going to have sick care, and they will make you sick, and you'll have to pay as much as you can.
Right. Well, you may have a tricorder or access. You might be able to borrow your neighbor's tricorder, and you'll have analysis. You'll be able to determine what your problem is, but getting treatment is a separate issue altogether.
So best just not get ill then. Best not get ill.
So number 17, 3D printing. The price of the cheapest 3D printer came down from $18,000 to $400 within 10 years. In the same time, it became 100 times faster. All major shoe companies have already started 3D printing shoes.
Damn, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay. So here's what I love about the 3D printing revolution is that it's fractal and self-replicating. So you get a 3D printer, you can 3D print another 3D printer.
There is
and then
that.
Now you have two 3D printers printing two more 3D printers. Right?
Yes.
Subdivision.
Geometric there.
And it's cheap enough where you just start giving them away to other people, and then they print. They run it through that same process. But because we are here's where we end up running into mental blocks. This is sort of the same kinds of mental blocks that a lot of people run into in terms of their finances, where they get a chunk of money and they spend it on everything that they want instead of figuring out a way to reinvest it to get get some of what you want, invest, grow that money, and double it. Take half of it and double it, and then you have as much as you started off with, plus whatever else.
I tried to do that. I tried to do that. And wound up losing money. I bought some land and wound up selling it for less than I paid for it.
Yeah, well, no, okay, so, that's anecdotal, and
I'm just saying.
You either were unlucky or you did it wrong, but
Well,
but we got a little.
I think it was unlucky, but
sure, but the logic there is sound. And again, I'll return back.
And yeah, if you can find a way, that would be great. But I'm going to tell you that it's not that easy to find a way. Otherwise, a hell of a lot more people would be doing it.
Oh, I think there's forces that work against that.
You think?
Yeah. I am starting to have my suspicions.
Ever so slightly, your spider senses are tingling.
Yeah,
just a wee bit.
But that's sort of the point that I'm making is that the right way is sound, and not to get too sound is a big deal thing, and I'm not trying to mix metaphors there or be too deep and esoteric.
Not, isn't it, when you're discussing certain topics?
Say again, Dom. Sorry.
I said it's hard not to mix metaphors when you're talking about these sort of topics in particular.
Exactly, and it's almost as if everything were connected in some way. It is,
isn't it? It's almost like everything's connected somehow.
Yeah.
Well, the problem I have with 3D shoe printing, and the Buddha in the comment section said kind of what I was thinking. Look. I don't know about you, but my shoes are made of several different types of material, and I understand how 3D printing works. So unless they can come up with a way to 3D print leather, I don't see 3D shoe printing unless you like to wear Crocs all the time, right?
I wear sandals all the time. They could easily be printed. They probably are, some of my sandals, actually.
Let me just answer Sandra real quick. She wants to know what I'm reading. Sandra, it's an article that was sent to me by my mom. So we're just going through the list of predictions in the near future. That's really all it is. It's just an article.
We don't know what fucking year it was written.
It doesn't matter. We're time. Don't you know that time stopped in 2012, and we are now. I'm half joking, half serious, in that I think, and I think that some of this is our difficulty adjusting to this new way of being out of time, where time is not quite the factor that it was in all the time leading up until now.
Are you going to go all Kronos and Saturn now?
Sort of, but not really. I just
all right,
I don't know. I
like to think so outside the box that I don't even know. You know, I try to forget what a box even is.
Yeah.
I ponder this time thing, because it's like, well, if time stopped, why do I continue to deteriorate into old age?
It's not about it stopping. It's about us having a new relationship to it. I would give like
I suppose that's
time and tide wait for no man, don't they? And our time is brief, and time has always been such a part of the human condition. Every single philosophy, Eastern, Western, ancient, modern, is obsessed with time, and rightly so.
Yeah, but we keep reframing it, we keep rethinking it, we keep redefining it, we keep forgetting, we keep remembering, we keep distorting it on all of these different levels. I think part of that is part of that is natural, but part of that is factions that know that that's natural, and then they exploit that angle for their own benefit. Okay, when you think about okay, so Dom, you're over in Britain. Have you ever heard of a company called Serco? I think we touched upon this.
Serco.
Yes, no.
RCO.
SERCO. Out of
it rings bells. It rings bells.
Okay, so these are the motherfuckers that run Greenwich Mean Time.
Right, it's really interesting you're saying that now, because I was just thinking about the first clocks. You know, Britain was at the center of that for nautical, for finding was it the latitude? Yeah, it was the latitudes, wasn't it? That was
so talk about power. Talk about worldly power. Talk about if you want to go into godly power, satanic power, power for good, power for evil. Doesn't matter. At some point, we're talking about power over others. Who holds it? Who doesn't hold it? Who's going up to the altar begging for it? Anyway, Serco as a company seems to actually own time itself. Well, they also own detention centers and immigration centers, right? Have you ever heard this metaphor of doing time? As being in a prison, you do time.
Right.
Okay, so how are those two things connected? Absolutely fascinating. This is all part of the awakening, the apocalypse, as the veils get thinner or get removed. More and more concepts and things for people to look at. You know, like when was the last time anybody thought about who owns time, and can time be owned?
No,
I own my own time. Thank you very much. The end.
I don't know, but I'll trademark it if I can.
Right.
Time is immaterial. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, you do and you don't. Right.
It's just a like concept. I think it's it's just a human concept. That's all. That's all time is.
Well, I guess, except that something defines the change that we have going.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's a human. It can possibly be a human concept only. If now, Dom, I know you're a big flat earther. No, I'm kidding. No, but okay. According to the standard model, the Earth goes around the sun every 365 days. I accept that. 365.24 something, right? Days. That has nothing to do with humans. Humans don't control that. They only control the interpretation of what they do with that. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but the power over the control of the interpretation is all that we have to work with. We can't actually get that thing to spin and revolve any differently. But we can lie and cheat and steal based off of better and worse ideas around what that is, what that means, etc. I don't want to ramble and dominate, so I'll throw it back to you guys. But I think there's some good stuff to think about there.
All right, let me go on with this. Number 18, spare airplane parts are already 3D printed in remote airports. The space station now has a 3D printer that eliminates the need for large amounts of spare parts that they used to have in the past.
Interesting.
Now, that may be well and good, except for one thing. The only thing that a 3D printer is good for is making things out of plastic. It's not very good for making things out of multiple sources of different materials.
Not yet.
And okay, fair enough, and not yet. And furthermore, if you're on the space station, for instance, you still have to have enough material that the 3D printer consumes in order to make the parts that you need. So they're not saving on space. They're not saving on weight. Do you know what I mean? You still have to, because a 3D printer, if you've ever seen one or if you know how they work, the cheap ones, they run on little plastic wire. You buy different spools of different colored wire, and it feeds into a machine that melts the wire and puts little droplets of wire where it's required according to the CAD machine tells it to put it. And that's how it works. And you build something out of plastic, one tiny drop at a time. You're still going to have spools of wire, plastic, for the 3D printer to work. So you either have spare parts or you've got a 3D printer with spools of fucking plastic. So they're not saving anything there. I don't think
right,
a method of recycling what you've made, and you make I don't know, you print a.
Now you got to have a machine that's going to take old plastic, grind it into bits, and melt it into plastic wire that the 3D printer can use.
Right, yeah, but you could also 3D print such a machine. See, this is where we run into limits of how creative people are, and then how easily they go for convenience, and what do margins look like at any given time, and how are they then improved by any other people who spot the large gaps in margins and then try to close them. So we're always in the middle, right? We're always stuck in the middle of something and everything. So the idea I want to put forth is that we're always solving problems, but once they're solved, we take them for granted as being solved, and we just go on to the next problem. And if we don't sort of take a breath and be grateful for all of the sets of problems that were solved before we immediately jump onto the next problem to be solved, we're going to think that the tide of problems coming at us is not only constant, but growing exponentially.
Number 19, at the end of this year, I'm sorry, go ahead. You want to finish?
No, good. Move on. It's great. Good flow.
At the end of this year, new smartphones will have 3D scanning capabilities. You can then 3D scan your feet and print your perfect shoe at home. Now back to the shoe thing. Unless you like wearing Crocs, you're not going to get much of a shoe. I mean, shoes are, like I said, they're made of multiple different sources of material. You've got the foam on the bottom. You've got the shoe insert itself. You've got the holes where the shoelaces go. Usually have little metal clips, so the fucking shoelaces.
You're not a trainers person. You don't wear trainers, do you? Or what do you call them? Trainers in America?
Sneakers, or
you don't wear sneakers,
kind of shoes.
Aaron, you don't wear sneakers, do you?
I do.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Surely you could print them really easily and do a really good version. I'm thinking about getting a 3D printer just to print me some shoes.
Well, again, I mean, look, back to the possible or the capability of a 3D scanner, knowing how they work. If you look at the if you look at the trainers I'm wearing, they've got cloth so that, you know, the toes can breathe. You don't get athlete's foot. You know, they've
but
got
it's all
holes.
artificial. It's all nylon and plastic and man-made.
No, I understand it's nylon and plastic, but nevertheless, show me a 3D printer that can print a freaking breathable cloth material. They're not. You know what I mean? It's gonna.
Why does it have to be cloth? What do you mean by cloth?
Greatest potential. Just throw into the chat. He goes edible shoes. So when
yeah, they could be.
When you get lost, right?
Well, that was the old thing.
I'll do a much better. So let's go. Edible shoes.
Hold on.
Also used with psychedelic mushrooms. So if you get lost, you can eat them and also find your way out of the matrix through.
I like the idea.
I love it. I love it.
I'm starting to
like that. I'm starting to like.
Didn't they used to eat their boots in the Wild West when they were starving? That was one of the things they'd start eating. They did
that in Russia as well at the end.
And in Napoleon, the Napoleon Wars as well. They were eating their boots, leather boots.
When you start starving, you'll eat just about anything.
You're damn right. Okay, so
I've never been there, luckily.
In China, they already 3D printed and built a complete 6-story office building. By 2027, 10% of everything that's being produced will be 3D printed.
I wonder how much of it is now.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if that is highly likely.
So okay, let's get into the idea of micro factories. Is that going to come up, Aaron, in this article?
Well, I think they already alluded to it, but no, not specifically.
I might have been out for that one, but
no, not specifically. I mean, just on the 3D printing concept alone, as it said right here. That,
okay, so there's an allusion, but no direct reference to the.
Well, you know, it said at the end of this year, your smartphone will have 3D scanning possibilities, so you can 3D scan whatever you want. The example they give is scan your feet and make some shoes.
Okay.
So if they say at the end of this year, your own cell phone will have 3D scanning possibilities, and 3D printers are so cheap.
Hold on, wait there. Now we know that this article was written this year.
Yep.
Or at least very, very, very recently.
Well, yeah, it is a recent article.
Yeah. So I'm guessing the article.
So I think micro factories. That's gonna edible shoes. Brilliant. edible anything. This is not the point I want to make. I'm gonna have to.
Certain facilities, there are facilities that have 3D printing for human organs, if you didn't know that already.
Sure. Great. Why not?
Yep. I had heard about that.
Yes,
the Kardashians are the biggest buyers, aren't they?
So that's going to end. That'll put an end to the human trafficking and the organ trafficking.
Right.
We hope.
Not end it. No, it won't end it because I think that there's still going to be a thrill factor to it.
Well, the human hunting won't end. There'll still be human hunting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the royals like their hunting parties for sure. But, you know, the organ harvesting, you know, Dick Cheney needs heart number 8, so he'll just have his secretary print one up. All right, so number 20, business opportunities. If you think of a niche you want to go in, first ask yourself, in the future, do I think we will have that? And if the answer is yes, how can you make it happen sooner? Number 20-A. If it doesn't work with your phone, forget the idea. Any idea designed for success in the 20th century is doomed to failure in the 21st century. So number 20-B, work. 70 to 80% of jobs will disappear in the next 20 years. Now that's a little frightening if it's true. There will be a lot of new jobs, but it's not clear if there will be enough new jobs in such a short time. This will require a rethink on wealth redistribution. That's a frightening thought all by itself.
Mm-hmm.
The second industrial revolution, isn't it?
Okay.
Well, this article is called the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
So either we are sober to the world that we live in, and we think that that radical change is inevitable because of all of the technology. So if you look at you scan how many industries there are, how much radical technology is within every industry, then what we would have to rationally and reasonably assume is that it's going to be a hot mess, and it's going to be really, really difficult to navigate. So my advice and my sort of sentiment is to know that a shitstorm of difficulty is coming, but it's the potential, the upside is far greater than the downside. Of course, we're going to have to deal with all of the downside to get to the upside, but the upside is worth it. Back to you.
So number 21, agriculture. There will be a $100 agricultural robot in the future. I know Amy's her ears just perked up.
Woohoo!
Farmers in third world countries can then become managers of their field instead of working all day in their fields. So agricultural robots, that's an easy one. That's not hard to imagine. Agriculture, for the most part,
all the big tractors and combine harvesters already running on GPS anyway, aren't they? And the guys just sat there as a token gesture, like with airline pilots. They're only actually ever doing anything when they're taking off and landing, aren't they? The rest of the time it's on autopilot. So that's kind of already automated, isn't it? On the big scale, at least.
I saw a video on the new agricultural machinery being used, and it's awesome and
super high tech.
It is. There's a machine that one tractor drives and can harvest corn. Let me see if I remember correctly. I think it was 20 or 30 rows at a time as it moves forward. It just consumes 20 or 30 rows of corn as it plows forward. And it consumes and produces and separates so much that there is literally 5 freaking huge trucks that have to follow this tractor, and they all move forward slowly in tandem, keeping their distance from each other, so that the thing can blow the product into each truck as it moves forward. And it just gobbled up that field, dude. I couldn't fucking believe how fast.
Awesome.
Yeah, can we talk about for a second a concept I just thought of, which is can we replace the term, or not replace, but consider reframing the term scary or frightening with the term intimidating? Because I think
okay, fair enough. That is a better word, at least in this case.
Yeah. Well, that's what made me think of it, right? And how can this like retroactively apply to all of these concepts that we find so viscerally scary, right?
It's like the logging machine. Have you ever guys seen that logging machine?
Yeah.
It has a huge hydraulic arm that grabs onto a tree, cuts it, gently lays it down, and then zips it all the way through, breaking and cutting all the branches and turning it into a log within seconds.
In my head,
One guy operates that machine.
Yeah.
That's intimidating.
It's very intimidating.
Not scary,
right?
But yeah, intimidating. It's like you watch it and you just go, holy shit.
But isn't that a testament to the power of the human mind?
Sure.
Or the power of human minds working in concert, working on projects, solving problems, getting together and saying, look,
problems as well, though, isn't it? That's the other side of it. It's creating problems.
Well, yeah, every solution creates another problem. I think that's sort of the beautiful, tragic, tragipoetic condition that we continually find ourselves in.
Well, maybe the printing, the 3D printing can save those trees, because that machine will no longer be needed, because you'll be printing all the things that you would have been made out of the tree that took hundreds of years to grow, and 30 seconds to cut down, chop down, strip, and turn into a stump.
All right. This next one or two might creep
either that or the 3D or the 3D printer figures out how to augment, so that you actually like take a sapling, put a 3D printer in it that next to it that will like do some sort of radical infusion, hyper growing, protocol to that tree. So a tree that might have taken 100 years to grow to a logging industry worthy product can be done in 10 years.
You know that certain wood is worth more than, right now, certain wood is worth more per gram, I think, than gold, like Brazilian hardwoods.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine
there are certain woods submerged in rivers. There are logs that are submerged in rivers, and there are people who go out in the bayous of like Louisiana, for instance, and they seek and retrieve these old trees that have fallen and been submerged in the water for, I don't know, a decade or so. And then some guy comes along and he drags it out of the river, and it's some of the best wood ever for certain types of furniture and stuff like that. Really, really, really high dollar stuff. But let me read past these next two.
I was thinking more in terms of for $10,000 guitars and 10,000 guitar, $20,000 instruments,
it's interesting.
high-end instruments.
I play guitar, and my acoustic guitar, the one that featured on some of the videos that I had on my other channel, is actually made from Brazilian rosewood. So,
it's been illegal to. I mean, I think it was illegal to export it even in the 70s.
My guitar is 46 years old. It's a 77 model, and it's got Yuri signature, the Japanese luthier who created the company.
Not Tokai.
I just brain farted. Alvarez, excuse me. And so yeah, my guitar's got Yuri's signature on it. It's made from Brazilian rosewood, and I had a guy look at it and appraise it. This was 10 years ago. He said it was. He estimated it to be, I don't know, $2,500. He said this is made from Brazilian rosewood. He said this is stuff that was shipped over right around World War II. And a lot of this wood was shipped to Japan for guitar making, and then the guitars were shipped here. And so I don't know about the ban on Brazilian rosewood. I just know that my guitar is old and it comes from old wood. All right, so check this out. Aeroponics will need much less water. Aeroponics. Here we go. This might creep you out a little bit. The first Petri dish produced veal is now available and will be cheaper than cow produced veal in 2018. Right now, 30% of all agricultural surfaces are used for cows. Imagine if we don't need that space anymore. They're growing veal in Petri dishes.
Eesh.
Is that a good thing?
Maybe.
It may be, right? Because we're not slaughtering animals and shit,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just tissue, right? You're just going to grow tissue, let it grow, and then we'll slice off and have a steak.
At least there's no nervous system to experience pain, and cow.
Yeah.
And inject the meat with.
Yeah. And isn't the majority of American cow meat, aren't they fed on like feed? They don't graze, do they, on grass like they do in
the majority are.
Yeah, the majority is grain fed.
Yeah. That's not natural for a cow, is it? So the meat's
No,
not really natural.
it's what gives them massive stomach issues.
Yeah, and they all have in this country. Every single cow has injections every single day.
And then there's the issue of the fear and the pain and the adrenaline that the meat is
Yeah.
injected with, as
Yeah.
the cows are one by one herded into the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And if you think a cow is dumb, that's fine. But if you think a cow is so dumb that he doesn't smell the blood and know what's coming or have an idea, or hear his other cows screaming as they're dying.
Where I live, I can hear that sometimes at night. I can hear the cows screaming when they take their, when they take the calves away.
I hate and reject the idea that animals are dumb because they are not similarly intelligent to us, or any animal is dumb because it's not similarly intelligent to us.
Yeah, anyone saying that has never spent any time with an animal, have they?
Yeah, this is a big problem. This is a big problem in attitude.
Yeah,
and it really betrays a pattern of disrespect that is not within our actual nature. It comes from our nature in some ways, but it's a fraction of our nature. I think our truer nature is one of symbiotic appreciation. But Amy, like going back to your main themes, these are the psychopaths in charge that'll take that little fraction of a human foible and exploit the hell out of that and make it dominant and toxic and corrosive, and then feed it back to us until we think it's normal. And
yes.
Sorry, I get passionate. Like there's that thing where we start to get like this new kind of passion when we step outside of all humans that get abused. Yeah, okay, sure, humans get abused, right? But then we see the other.
No, humans don't get abused. We get engineered. Society in which we exist, in which we're programmed, society is engineered from the top down. There's no question about that.
Yes.
Yeah, but by some fucking sick motherfuckers.
Yeah, the worst.
Psychopaths. Psychopaths.
The 6%, the 5% of psychopaths, they rise to the top in a system designed for psychopaths to rise to the top.
But it makes sense, though. It makes sense that they rise to the top because they're willing to kill and they're willing to maim and hurt and harm people, whereas normal people are not. So it makes sense that they would rise to the top. This should be no surprise to any of us.
In any system where you have a top-down control mind and you have money, which, everyone knows money gives power over others, you are going to see the psychopaths promoted. The end. It's just that is the way that such systems function. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that both those systems were introduced by psychopaths because of their promoting of themselves, if you will. So yeah, that's why I'm out to walk away from those systems and set up something that promotes the caring ones to take care of things.
I think there's what's necessary is the multi-prong approach, which is can't lean too heavily on the idea of everything would get better. And I'm not accusing anybody in their position of holding one thing above another. I'm just saying multi-prong approach. One idea is correct that we have to stop them from doing this, but in the event that we can't stop them from doing this, we have to build up our own self-defense and immunity, because they're going to continue to bombard us with this and that, and it's ultimately our own responsibility for our own self-defense. Well, then there's the next layer of all the folks that could benefit from getting a little bit more information about what's really going on so that they could better defend themselves. And then all the way down to the bottom of the people that are absolutely clueless and sort of just sway with the wind and go with whatever because they've been so weakened by the system. Well, how do we lift them up as well? And I'm sure there's 100 dimensions in between. Either way, when you know what's good, when you see what's good, you have to follow what's good and fight for what's good and promote what's good and do your best and speak it out loud and lead by example and hopefully it will be helpful to as many people that you could get that message through to.
All right, moving on. There's a couple more to go, and then we're done with this article. It says here there are several startups that will bring insect protein to the market shortly. It contains more protein than meat. It will be labeled as, and everybody pay close attention now. Everybody put your fucking ears on. Because in the future, when you go to the market, pay attention to what you're buying, what I'm about to tell you here. It says it will be labeled as, quote, alternative protein source.
I like insects.
Let that sink in.
They taste good. Crickets taste nice.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. Well, hey,
chocolate-covered ants.
Hey, I understand that scorpions have a sweet taste. I understand that grub worms are very oaky. They're kind of nutty, you know. But whatever. If you want to eat bugs, that's your thing. I just want everybody to be very aware.
Aaron, have you ever
sink in, dude?
Have you ever eaten a bug?
No.
Yeah, you have.
Well, when I was a kid, I ate worms.
No, but if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, like the average person eats like 10 to 20 spiders a year in their sleep. So yeah, you're eating them. You just don't know it.
Well, you know what? When I go to the grocery store and I buy a product and I expect it to contain beef or chicken or pork or whatever I want for the day or whatever, and it says alternative protein source, I'm going to think twice before I buy it.
Yeah, I would anyway.
Yeah, me too.
I would anyway. If it says anything alternative protein source, I'd be
just skeptical. Let that sink in. Alternative protein source. We're
brought to you by our friend
Soylent Bug. Soylent Bug.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back radical. Let's go back radical. Are we actually being fed our own selves through fast food chains?
I don't eat fast food, so but yeah, possibly, man. Not
we, but we as in humans, not we as in people who try to avoid horrible things.
Apparently, they have indeed found human meat in McDonald's, and apparently it is
just quickly,
large part.
Hold on 1 minute. A few years ago, I don't know if this happened in America, but a few years ago, there was a massive scandal over here with all the supermarket chains found out that a lot of what they were calling beef burgers over here was actually horse meat.
Horse meat, sure.
Well, yeah, I don't, that's a little less disturbing.
But people keep pets as horses, don't they? Like in Korea, they eat dogs. Why not eat a dog? Oh, I shouldn't eat a dog. I have a dog. I've got a dog as a pet. Well, but you'll happily eat pigs, and pigs are more intelligent than dogs, whether you like it or not.
Yes, that's true. But the point is that there's a difference between mislabeling one critter meat for another critter meat and calling something that's
the key right there. Is
I think Bart's right. I think you're all right. I think it's probably most likely that certainly in America they probably are feeding you human cells. Who knows?
Apparently, what is going on? At least if you listen to that rabbi, what's his name, Finkelstein, I think it was.
Yes.
He says that they sacrifice their
children.
The children, and then dump the bodies in the meat processing plants.
Look, between the UK and the United States, 1 million children go missing every single fucking year.
No, they don't. Only Madeleine McCann goes missing. There are no other missing children. Only Madeleine McCann.
Only Madeleine McCann. That's right. She's the only one that has ever gone missing.
In the last 10 years, just her.
Just her.
Just her.
Hey, look.
The other 999,999.
They're all found the next day.
I think
they're found the next day. Yes.
I think you're laying out a really important dynamic, which is the idea that the story sold, bought and sold and resold, is that it's not anywhere near as bad as any of these cuckoo conspiracy theorists would ever come up with, right? Okay, yeah, it's one or two instances here and there by some loony. That's the strength of the delusion. But then when you look at the okay, so then you go to the other bookend of it, and you go, a million are, stolen and ground up and fed back to us. Okay, that's nonsense. That couldn't possibly be the case. But the gap between that and the, one,
but even one would be one too many, wouldn't it? Whether it's a million ground up or one would be too many.
This is where I draw the line. I draw the line at cannibalism. I will not eat other people. I will starve to death before I eat another person. The end.
Depends who you were with.
I'm sorry. It really doesn't.
Do you guys remember about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a story, an article going around that came out of NASA where they were exploring the idea of recycling the astronauts' feces to produce food?
I thought they were going to, I can remember having a giggle with one of my friends because I thought they were going to poop their way to Mars. They were
I called it Soylent Brown.
Way across to Mars. Well, we're at Mars. That was one small step for man, one huge shit for us.
It's called an.
If you want to get the alliteration going, it's Soylent shit.
Right.
Sort of alliterates.
I think
it starts with the same letter.
I think it's like the human methane drive, right? It's like a plasma drive or an ion drive, except every now and again the astronauts, stick a tube up their asses, fart into it, and then that's going to be the propellant.
What about the etymological basis for the company called Soylent? It's soil. No.
Really?
Nothing? Anybody?
Soil.
No, it's a dead end, Aaron. Dead end.
All right, dead end. All right, back to the article.
No. What's that? I'm not familiar with the company.
Oh, it's from 1984. The Soylent Green, Soylent.
Oh yeah, right. Soylent Green, sure.
Yes. So the astronauts are eating their own soil, Soylent Brown.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So I think that this starts getting into these ideas of like where we end up putting boundaries or linguistic boundaries or ones that like this whole idea of disgust and grossness. I'll start with an idea of somebody shopping at the supermarket and buying this thing called meat, and to them it's a product that is in the range or set of products that's available to them at the grocery store, right? So it's been normalized. Where it comes from, what it is removed from its reality. And so
now you're making me think of something. I don't want to interrupt your flow of thought, but
well, okay. Let me just I'll wrap it up as quick as possible. It's the idea of okay, so cereals, grains, breads, you know, whatever. You can sort of wrap your mind around that, right? But when it comes to meat, you know, the idea of killing, slaughtering, then dissecting, compartment you know, this cut of the animal, that cut of the animal. If anybody actually took the time to think about what that, came to terms with what that actually means, they would be somewhat more empathic, potentially traumatized by it. Would they be able to get over the trauma of it or not? That's a whole nother set of questions. But the idea is, as long as you're allowed the space to never actually think about it, then that creates this another gap to exploit. That's why you can end up sneaking all of this food. I came across this great term. I forget who coined it, but foodless food, where this stuff that looks like food, because you're used to looking at food and looking at the surface of food and thinking, oh, that's food because it looks like food, right? Well, but meanwhile, it's like, you know, half of it is sawdust and the other half of it is some kind of a unholy concoction of who knows what the fuck. And because it looks like food, you go, yeah, I'm going to eat that as quickly and as readily as anything else. I've already lost my train of thought somewhat. I trust,
you know, earlier,
but I'm going to throw it back to you, Aaron.
Earlier in the article, it mentioned growing veal in petri dishes, and something that you mentioned about removing it from its environment. And it occurred to me that any veal, any meat that is grown in a petri dish, if this is in our future, you're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to buy a cut of meat and find out that it was grown in a dish. You know, we talked about the ethics of slaughtering animals and all that. What about the nutritional value? If this chunk of meat is growing in a petri dish or in a laboratory, in a large scale laboratory production, what happens when the meat is growing without the nutrients, without the full nutrients? Of course it'll have nutrients. It won't grow. It won't grow in a petri dish without nutrients. But what about the full nutrients of a blood supply system that has all of the DNA and all of the sugars and all of the nutrients, literally the vitamins, the minerals that are carried by your blood that make the meat what it is? I wonder how nutritionally deficient it'll be.
Oh, it'll be tremendously deficient. But what that does is it opens up vistas of industries to supplement that which was removed and deprived. So
3D
you know, in
printed
terms of
food?
Even if it's tremendously deficient, it's probably still going to be better for you than McDonald's.
Yeah, well,
It can't be any worse for you than McDonald's.
No, it can always be worse. It can always be worse.
I don't know. Would it? I don't know. I'd need a taste comparison because I wouldn't even eat.
Seriously,
like, do not eat McDonald's. Like, don't even ever.
Next time you walk into McDonald's, ask for a McHuman.
Yeah.
I will not be walking into a McDonald's.
Eat any chain store food, fast food, man. That is like fucking hell.
Look,
hey, I go into McDonald's frequently, but only to use the bathroom, and that's the truth.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is
that's
one of
the
Clean
perfect
bathroom. When you're on
yeah,
the road, you stop in any McDonald's and guarantee a clean bathroom.
You supply them with their raw materials.
That's what they're doing. You're supplying NASA on their way to Mars and McDonald's to make their fries or their burgers or whatever it is. Shit meat, literally.
Oy vey.
Oy vault.
Good one, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 24, almost done. There's an app called Moody's, which can already tell what mood you're in. By 2020, there will be apps that can tell by your facial expressions if you're lying. Imagine a political debate where it's being displayed when they're telling the truth and when they're not. It will ultimately compel all politicians to be truthful.
Bullshit. They'll just learn to lie harder.
That's what I say. Bullshit. They'll rig it like they rigged the elections. Bullshit.
You know, I'm just sitting there thinking, let's see. First and foremost, for example, if you know, psychopaths are really good at passing polygraph tests. You know,
they're good at passing off.
They'll just learn to lie better, won't they?
So I'm just sitting there thinking, if they're going to lie, they're going to look like they're telling the truth, because that's how psychopaths are. They
believe their own bullshit. That's how you pass a polygraph.
Yes,
you have to believe your own bullshit, don't you?
So no, first of all, I don't think it will ever be successful in nailing every single person that's lying. I'm going to say that, yeah, us non-psychopaths, it's probably going to do a pretty good job, but without a guarantee of pretty damn close to 100%. What good is it? Why? You're just creating more problems.
Yeah, I
than
imagine
you're
a
solving.
scenario in the future where people are watching a political debate, and on the screen in the corner of the TV is this little monitor that says, "Oh, he lied," or "Oh, no, he's telling the truth." And I'm calling bullshit, because they'll rig that stuff just like they do the elections.
Fuck yeah, of course they will.
Yes.
If their plan is already rigged,
Yes.
It'll be fake as fuck.
Puppet. It's just a puppet
Absolutely,
show.
absolutely.
And isn't it odd?
It's totally a puppet show.
Did you notice how many truther channels all of a sudden became political when Trump got in, and all of a sudden they were acting like politics was real, like politicians actually run?
Oh yeah.
Well,
a lot of them
then they weren't really truthers now.
Like saying, "Oh yeah, Trump's going to fight the Zionists." Like,
yeah, Trump's the answer. Trump's going to make it work. We had
the king of conspiracies on our show, and he said he's going to drain Jim Fetzer. We had Jim Fetzer, and Jim Fetzer said to my face, "He's going to drain the swamp."
Oh fucking!
Oh,
yes,
shit.
He did. I'm just sitting there shaking my head.
How much does he get paid?
I don't think so, but I'll just let it go.
All right, last one, guys. Last one. By 2020.
Someone who's writing in chat, kosher fluoride.
Kosher fluoride.
That's our plan B. Who I think you should give a wrench to, Aaron.
Yeah. Get me. By the way, Amy, get me RR's URL.
You already have it.
And get me.
If you look.
Get me. Who else? C-Space. Get me C-Space URL. And get me Alpha Thelema URL, and I'll give them wrenches.
When I talk to people that I know are obviously not conspiracy minded, but are maybe suspicious of the government, one of the things I always say to them, really subtly, because I won't be in your face like, you should check out this and check out that, and you just got to be. I think you've just got to be really subtle and let them. You can't, when people say, "Oh, I woke you up, man," he woke me up. You've got to wake yourself up. We all know that, don't you? You have to give people the leads to follow. And one of the ones I always do.
You can lead a horse to water. That's
exactly. But one of the ones I always use is the fluoride thing. I always say about look into why there's fluoride in water. Look into that. Why fluoride is in your drinking water.
Fuck, I've got a friend of mine who is a high-end dentist, and he's been in the business for dog's years, and him and I got into an argument over fluoride, and
he'll be well programmed, man. He won't know any better.
Well, of course, he reads the journals that are put out by pharmaceutical companies.
People that he trusts, people that he does trust.
Right. Exactly.
So he's not a bad person, you know. He's not a sheeple or anything. He's just not in. He hasn't got access to the occult information, has he? The hidden information.
It's for me. It's all about words as magic. So most people don't consider words as a form of magic, and when they think about spells, magical spells, they think Harry Potter stuff. I think that this has sort of been designed, introduced as the cover story itself.
Well, that's why we spell words, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why we spell words. It's just okay. You think you get it? Go deeper. Oh, you think you get it? Go deeper.
Right.
Oh, now you get it? Now you're an adept? No. Is there deeper to go? Guess what? Yeah, go deeper.
Right.
And
I keep thinking about
once you go down deep enough, what you've done is you've traversed so many depths that you can't possibly be arrogant around how deep you went and hold it against other people for not having gone so deep, because you know the work you put in, you know how much how hard it was, how many times you were wrong and confused all along the way. So you can't end up being, too bitter or arrogant against anybody who hasn't put in that amount of work or effort. And that ends up being those things called compassion and empathy, and gentleness, and sweetness for anybody who's not strong enough, not aware enough to go on that hero's journey. And then you're.
What about heroine journey?
Same thing.
Heroines.
Yeah, that it's not like, we don't have to get into gender studies here.
Hey, if you're confused about your gender, just look in your freaking underpants.
Yeah.
That's something Donald Trump would say.
Just feel around.
Go.
All right, last one, guys. By 2020 or sooner, some might suggest this is happening now. What a university student learns in the first year of a 4-year degree will be irrelevant and redundant by the time the 4th year is complete.
Yeah.
I'd say that yes and no. Some of it will.
Yeah, I would say
it won't.
In some instances, yes. In others, no.
I would say. I would. Go ahead.
I think we're already there in some certain areas, But yeah.
I would say 99% of the time, yes, and I'll tell you why. Because the education system as it is set up is designed to teach you what was relevant 30 years ago, which is absolutely retarded by definition. The education system should be designed to teach you what is 30 years to come. And almost nobody has the balls or intelligence to actually construct a competent, responsible plan to do that. That's why 99% of education systems are going to fail. And that's why if you want to get ahead of the curve, you have to work super hard to find that 1% that's going to take you ahead of the curve.
Well, in thinking about educating our children, as far as going into the abundance paradigm, where we don't have to add our energy somehow, figure out a way to plug our energy in, whether we can't stand it or not, just to survive. I keep thinking that the best way to educate our children is to give them, the basics, you know, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, and point them on the web, guide them on the web, and let them explore and find out what interests them.
I was going to say, give them a stick and a rope.
There you go. No, you know, you figure if people learn so much better if they're interested in it.
Right.
They will retain so much more. And so rather than forcing kids to sit in school and endure crap that doesn't interest them, which will go in one ear, stick around long enough to puke it out on the test, and then it'll go out the other ear, which is, I mean, that's wasting their lives, their energy, our lives and our energy in trying to make them do that. Just let them find what they are interested in, and they'll take off. And as they need information in other areas of the universe, they will look for it. You know, quit telling them what they have to learn. I mean, that's one reason why I want to get the going, so that our children can learn things they want to learn.
Yeah, but where's
I mean,
that's what John Taylor Gatto talks about all the time, the way he used to handle his students. John Taylor Gatto would say to a student, look, he tells a story. He said he'd walk down his row of students, you know, sit in their seats, and he'd see somebody doodling on a paper, and he'd say, look, you like to draw cartoons? Take 3 weeks off of school, go to the library, get this book, this book, this book, and any other book that you see that catches your eye. You know, take 3 months off of school, I'll cover for you, and go and pursue this or that. And
yeah, go hook yourself up with an apprenticeship.
But it's really about encouraging people to pursue what interests them. As Amy said, you're going to learn and retain so much more.
More.
Okay, I got one more question that I want to go ahead and throw at everybody on the panel, and then I will also pipe in. This is from Alpha Thelema. She's in the chat right now. I assume it's a female. I hope it's a female. I hope I'm not get the gender pronoun wrong. Please don't arrest me. Here's the question. She says, will you ever discuss IQ on your show and the consensus in the science community that it is fixed genetic number and there is nothing we can do to fix it? Isn't this what those behind the curtains would want us to believe? Do you think it's possible that there is some occult knowledge on how to become a more intelligent person? Or could you give me some tips or any books you would suggest? I trust your judgment because I've watched a significant number of your shows. You clearly have an elevated level of thinking. The way you synthesize so many different things across all different periods of history and articulate so well is evident of this. Lastly, were you always intelligent? In other words, were you naturally smart from the beginning, or did you become smart later in life? I'd really appreciate your feedback on this. And if you haven't researched much about IQ, maybe it'd be a good topic for the show. So it is a good topic, and I want to address everybody on the show. I do consider everyone here to be highly intelligent. This is a good, appropriate topic to cover. So I'll pass it to anybody who wants to go first. What do you think? Is intelligence something that is genetic, as is stated here? According,
can I go first here, because I'm going to have to shoot in a minute anyway.
Do it, bro. Go.
Right. I think the whole IQ test is completely fraudulent. I think we've all got the same, essentially, lumps of meat in our head, which we call our brains. And I think the majority of it is your nature and your nurture. If you're, for instance, if a scientist, a Western scientist, say a quantum physicist, sets an IQ test for an Aboriginal, the Aboriginal is going to fail that IQ test. But if an Aboriginal sets an IQ test like how to survive in the western deserts of Australia, that Western scientist will completely fail his IQ test as well, won't he? We've got the same lumps,
right?
We've got the same lumps of meat in our head. We're genetically, we're all brothers and sisters. We're all one family, and I think it's all down to nature and nurture. And I think you can improve your brain and you can improve your thinking all the time. And I think that's one of the main purposes of being alive, is to get to think clearer, maybe. And we've all got the same lumps of meat. It's just how you use them, and if you've had good stimulation when you're younger, and if you stimulate your own mind through whatever, reading, anything.
Good answer.
No, good answer. Very good. Go ahead, Amy.
From my standpoint, when I was taking one IQ test, that I was aghast that this was supposedly an IQ test, where it said, "What does this word mean?" And I looked at that test and I thought, if against all odds, a person had never encountered a cat, nor the word cat, ever in their lives, which granted that probably isn't going to happen, very likely, but suppose it did, and you said, "What does cat mean?" And they say, "Huh? Oh, well, you're stupid. Your IQ is low." I'm going, okay, this test is bullpucky, because if I hadn't encountered any of the words that they were asking about, for crying out loud, how the heck was I going to know what they were?
Yeah.
What they meant? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that has nothing to do with IQ, but experience.
A lot of people don't have time to use their brains. Literally, that's one of the big problems in today's society. They don't have time to use their brains. And on that, I'm going to say good night.
They don't give them.
Yeah. Have a good night, guys. Have a good night.
Great job.
Really interesting.
Pleasure.
It's always a pleasure.
Loved having you.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Adios. Bye bye.
We'll see you Sunday.
Yeah. Oh yes. See you Sunday.
Hey, Dominic. It is exactly 9:10 p.m. What time do you have right now?
2 a.m. just gone. 2 a.m.
Okay, so you're 5 hours. So
yeah,
5 hours.
You know what time to be here tomorrow.
I was punching it the other way.
So that'll be 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock your time.
Tomorrow, day after.
Yep,
tomorrow.
8 o'clock.
Sunday. Right.
Sunday, which is tomorrow, effectively.
Yeah, for you.
Well, yeah, for you it is, but for us, it's still yet another day.
Are you trying to get him to hold on to 9/11?
Oh, there it is.
It's 2:11 now. It's 2:11 for me. I'm going at 2:11. Adios. Ciao. Bye bye.
All right, bro. Love you. See ya.
Love always.
Okay, I want to share. I want to do a screen.
Can I jump in? Because I didn't get to reply to your invite. Okay, yeah.
You heard the question, right?
I've always been smart. Both my parents were smart. My dad was valedictorian. My mom was top 3 in her class. All in Poland. All.
Well, I guess that dispels all the jokes that we used to make.
Yeah, really.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. We could do a whole joke. A whole show.
Bart's Polish. He's not a Polak.
Around Polish jokes.
Yes.
I'm ready. The Polish joke is like, for me, the cosmic joke. But okay.
Hey, we got to make fun of somebody.
Yeah. Right. I've delved into that topic this way and that. Anyway, my point would be this. Intelligence is talent. Intelligence and talent are related. It's what you end up doing with it that's important.
Right.
Because we've all heard those stories of the tragic person who had all the talent, all the intelligence, and then they fucked up, and now they're a shithead, right? Mm-hmm. And then we've heard of all of the stories around, hey, this person was not the smartest this person was not the brightest bulb on the tree, and yet they went on to huge success,
right,
because of some other set of characteristics that they had. So
do you guys, either of you, have an opinion as to whether or not intelligence can be increased over time? Can you work on it if you wanted to and increase your own intelligence?
Oh, hells yeah.
I strongly
Go ahead.
I strongly suspect that diet has an awful lot to do with it, as well as taking the time to expand, to exercise your facilities. You know, reading is an excellent way to assist.
I've got a screen share that involves reading, but go ahead, finish.
That's pretty much everything I had to say there.
Diet does have a role to play. Omega fish oils, you know, things that are good for your brain, avocados, almonds, walnuts, things that have elements and minerals that are good for your brain absolutely help. Absolutely. Exercise, absolutely. Reading beyond measure increases your vocabulary. Just increasing your own vocabulary increases your intelligence. It gives you the ability to understand things that you normally wouldn't if you didn't, like the example Amy gave. If you had never been exposed to a cat, and you'd have no concept of it, and so you might seem like a dumbass, but the fact is you've never been exposed to it. So like Dominic said,
right,
the whole intelligent quotient, the IQ test, it's a farce. It judges where you are now, not where you always have been or where you will be.
It's a mile marker, right? So think about mile, right? So you have 1 mile marker arbitrarily assigned somewhere, and then a mile from there is another marker.
That's right.
Right? So
back to the diet.
Everywhere in between those 2 markers, another marker could have been placed, and it would have related to the next mile marker. And so, go ahead.
No, finish.
No, that's sort of the gist of it. Is that in between any this and that is an infinity in which this or that could have been inserted, and if you stick too rigidly to, well, no, this and that are the thing that everybody needs to agree on, and conform to, that excludes anybody who has anything to say about the entire infinity between this and that.
I think memory plays a huge role. The ability to remember things like names, places, dates, definitions, specifically definitions like vocabulary definitions. The ability to remember and retain information is a huge, key, essential part of being an intelligent person, and in terms of understanding things. If you don't have a frame of reference, you're not going to be able to understand. If you do have a frame of reference, it's because you came across something, you were exposed to something, some piece of information, and you retained it for whatever reason, where you found it interesting, or maybe it's just one of those things that randomly stuck in your mind. But the fact is that if you can remember some frame of reference, some set of definitions, then you will inevitably be at a higher level of intelligence. So memory has a lot to do with it, and that goes back to diet, omega-3s, good stuff that's good for your brain that helps you to retain memory. Again, like Amy said, there are exercises that you can do, practice memory exercises. The ability to retain information that you come across is a key element, because a lot of us out here in the world of researchers or truthers or whatever you want to call us. And I'll even give Zach Hubbard props, because that guy has an amazing ability to retain random information from all across the board and tie it together with new things that come across his desk.
Yes, he does.
He's got a great, amazing ability to do that. It's seen as intelligence. It probably is absolutely downright intelligence. And I think that that's what it is. It has a lot to do with your ability to retain information. And then there's the aspect of exposure. And this is where reading comes in. You have to, and here I go quoting the Bible. Jesus said, "Seek and you will find." Yeah. You have to expose yourself. You have to seek information. You have to expose yourself to all kinds of information and do your very best to retain it. And just as a point of advice, one of the best ways to retain any piece of information is to repeat it, to teach someone, to tell someone what you just learned, because you create a neuro pathway in your brain, which is a secondary pathway. Okay, so the first pathway is your exposure. The second pathway is your retention ability, your ability to go back into your mind, grab that piece of information and spit it out to someone else.
I'll tell unless it's shit, right? but
and that's where discernment comes in, because there's lots of bullshit information.
Right. Here's the flip side of that, right? That whole thing works on either side of the equation. That's so whether you're talking about something,
that's where propaganda. That's why it works so well.
Yeah. So for me, it's always about. Okay, all of that is true. What does the step back from that look like? You know, step back and look at both sides of that equation or non-equation. What does that look like?
Exactly. Good point. Okay, so at this point, I think I want to go ahead and do a short screen share. This is only about 40 seconds long. This is a little excerpt from Alexander Macris, M-A-C-R-I-S. Alexander Macris. Anybody wants to look that up? Hopefully, let me see. Let me lock myself into a screen share so I'm full screen on everybody. I was a little bit bored last night. And I occasionally get a little bit bored and I look for a little entertainment rather than
boredom is a sign of intelligence.
Yep.
So anyway, I want to give props. My world is getting dumber. That's the channel I was on. This channel, this is one of those channels. It's a bunch of compilation videos where they go out on the street and they randomly interview people with basic questions that stupid people just can't answer. You know what I mean? It's funny and it's entertaining and it's all that.
Is how many sides does a triangle have? Is that on this one?
It is. It's one of the.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Oh, and they repeat a lot of questions, and some of the questions they're a little bit tricky. It's like if YES spells yes, what does EYES spell?
Eyes.
Thank you, Amy. See, we've got intelligent people on the panel. Okay, so check this out, you guys. I'm just going to play this. This is an excerpt from Alexander Macris' speech. And if you want the full speech, here's the link. You have to go to this channel. My World is Getting Dumber.
I get it now.
It's episode number 69. Some Americans Are Ignorant and Proud, number 69. Go into the description box, and there's a link to the full Alexander Macris speech. I'm just going to play a short excerpt. I need to unmute. Listen to this guy for about 40 seconds, and he's talking about intelligence and reading and the ability to increase your intelligence. Check this out.
Ring a bell? Reading, it turns out, is the most nutritious way you can consume content. The better you are at reading, the better you are at thinking. And how do you get better at reading? By reading. Educators call this principle the Matthew effect. In a series of studies, researchers Cunningham and Stantovich have demonstrated repeatedly that a high volume of reading increases knowledge, broadens vocabulary, and reduces the cognitive decline of aging. And all of these studies were controlled for general intelligence and verbal abilities. So in other words, it's not that smart people read, although they do, but that reading makes you smarter. No other type of content consumption has been shown to provide these benefits.
You recognize this?
Yeah, that was a new...
Okay, so I could let this play and we could have a good laugh, but they just basically asked a bunch of people a bunch of questions that they can't answer, and just show how dumb people are. So, and somewhere in this particular video, I like this channel because they don't just compile dumb people on the street. They mix up, like I just showed the Alexander McChrist speech. They mix in between, you know, various interviews. They mix up with, you know, interesting and informative and intelligent little clips, just like that little speech from Alexander McChrist. So yeah, reading is fundamental, just like the old Sesame Street used to tell you. So absolutely, reading does increase intelligence. It's a matter of exposure to information. And I remember in school a statistic that I'm pretty sure is still true and was true and is true, that you retain something like maybe 10% of what you hear, and then you retain something like 50% of what you read, and then you retain 60 or 75% of what you do and experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have to expose yourself. No one's going to do it for you. You're certainly not going to rely on any big brother, any government agency. Nobody's going to fucking do it for you. You've got to go out. You've got to seek and destroy, seek and find. You've got to go and expose yourself, new things, new information all the time. And like I said before, the best way to retain any piece of information is to repeat it to somebody else immediately. As soon as you can, find somebody that you can teach what you just learned, and you'll create a secondary neural pathway to that information lodged in your brain.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really, really good way to improve your memory, is to learn something and then immediately go teach it to somebody.
Mm.
I agree. I think that should actually work very well.
I would say what is the difference between experience and hearing and reading? I'm not saying that there's no distinction. I'm saying all of those are experiences. So you're experiencing reading, you're experiencing hearing, and then you're experiencing experience. What do those...
You want to drill down to the distinctions?
Yeah. What does that all look like? Like how are they different from each other? And what
I would suggest hearing
powerful than the other?
I would suggest a minimalistic version from one to the other, where doing involves physical action. So you're more involved, you're more engaged, much, much more engaged than any other activity. Reading is similar, although you're not very physical. It is actually partially physical. You're holding a book, your eyeballs are moving back and forth. You are physically reading in a physical sense.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, on the other hand, in a more simplistic manner, hearing is the least effort on your part.
I also have something to add to that. You've heard, or maybe you haven't, of the 3 modalities that we relate to the world in. I took a test expecting my modality to be mainly visual, but there's visual, audio, and kinesthetic. And when I got done with the test, I was extraordinarily kinesthetic, which just blew me away. And yes, visual came in a low second with audio barely making a blip. And so I also think that our modalities, and different people have different modalities. So somebody could hear something and it will stick better with them than somebody who, like me, who's not all that auditory at all. And we all have some of all of the modalities, but in different percentages. So it would work better to hear something for somebody who is a highly auditory focused modality, whereas with somebody who's highly visual, seeing pictures and being able to look around and see things in the outside world is going to be more impactful. So I don't know that we can necessarily say that it boils down to how much interaction we're having per se, although I do think that that has something to do with it.
Well said.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts on this subject? And if not, then I'll move forward with a couple of my notes that I didn't get to cover at the beginning.
I think
you know,
I'd like you to move on at this point.
You'd like me to move on?
Yeah, move on. Move the hell on, Aaron. Good.
Get on with it already.
You know, I would like to add that my mom did play probably a very, very large role in whatever intelligence level I have achieved. And that is because starting at a fairly young age, as soon as I was old enough to hold an adult conversation, 13, 14, we used to sit around the table almost every night. My brother, 4 years older, very intelligent. My mom, very intelligent. The three of us would sit around and just have deep conversations, very similar to what we're doing here now on the show. And it was something that we engaged in almost on a nightly basis. And we would just pick shit apart, man, every night. And it was interesting. It was stimulating. And we found it a lot of fun. It was engaging. It was good family time. It was intellectually stimulating on many levels. And it was something that I practiced. So again, we mentioned earlier about practice, right? You got to read, you got to expose yourself, you got to learn, you got to teach. This is all practice when it comes to intelligence, increasing your intelligence.
Can I reach in?
Yeah.
So I landed on a place in terms of the term practice. Often you hear about it in a medical thing. A practice, right? A doctor has a practice. That means, on one hand, they're practicing on you, meaning they don't have all the answers. They're sort of improvising, practicing on you, right?
Yes.
In order to, but if their heart is in a good place, what that is okay. They practice. They have their deficits. They have their foibles. But maybe the practice that they did on you will, after adjustments and better awareness, result in a better practice upon somebody else. And then again, and wash and rinse and repeat. Wash, rinse, and repeat. And so I landed on this place a while ago, which is every instance of practice is practice for the next practice, which is a practice for the next practice, which is a practice for the next practice. I think that's reasonable. That's an honest way to think about it. But this idea of like, we always want, we desire and hope for certainty so much. We hope against hope around that like, oh, this person that I'm going to go to for their advice, for their treatment, for their wisdom is doing something other than practicing on me. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we set ourselves up by not acknowledging that everybody is on a path, and everybody is on a path of efficiency and competency. So the idea, and then we'll run into all those people who will accuse and blame somebody of, oh, you harmed me 10 years ago, and now I'm suffering. Right? This is what this whole sexual assault, sexual harassment stuff, that these are things that happened 10, 12, 20 years ago, right? And here you are now, wherever you are in your life, and yet these accusations are coming from, 12, 20 years ago, and how you were a shithead back then. There's an inherent dishonesty to it. That something is getting wiped out and lost of human nature, and I think it's by design. I think it's by I think
a great deal of it is by design.
Say again? Sorry.
A very great deal of it is by design.
Yeah. But it's subtle, and a lot of people fall for it, right? And the more people fall for it, the more people sort of consent to the attitude and the trajectory of it. And I worry that that it's cheap. It's lowest hanging fruit. It's the fruit that you can, run up to the tree, grab off the tree, and hurl at your enemy's face, and and then mock them that I hit you in the face with the fruit, and look at you now. Where it's not sophisticated. It's not meaningful. It's
Go ahead.
They're dumb games disguised as the real war. Okay, back to you.
All right. I was just kind of scanning the chat there. I got a text message from my mom as we were speaking here, and as many of you know, my mom is a fan of the show, and she usually listens in when she can, which is most of the time. As we were discussing intelligence, she sent me a text message. She said, having the what if gene helps. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's sort of an inside, it's not a joke, it's a phrase, it's an inside thing in the family. I don't know who else has ever even used this term, but she calls it the what if gene. And basically what that means is something inside her, and this is what she has spent most of her life instilling in me and her other son, her kids. What if? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this doesn't work? What if this isn't strong enough? I'm a contractor, and I think in terms of logistics. So what if it's not strong enough? What if it's not glued well enough? What if the screw isn't deep enough? What if this happens? What if somebody walks up when you're not looking? What if the dog comes behind you and gets on the counter? What if this happens? What if the storm rolls in? You know what I mean? It's a what if gene.
Yep.
She refers to it as a genetic function, and although it's not, okay, it's a playful way to refer to it.
Sure.
She calls it the what if gene. What if? Sometimes she mocks me. What, you don't have, when I fuck something up, she'll go, what, you don't have the what if gene? I thought you had that.
Yeah.
You know what
I mean?
I love your mom. She's awesome.
So what you're saying there, right? Like the what if gene, even though it's not real, no.
It's a function of your consciousness. It's a function of your awareness.
The way she's framing it is for me is an indicator of a wisdom, right? And wisdom goes beyond any sort of other subcategory. Wisdom, like philosophy, right? The love of knowledge itself is wisdom. It's the highest altar. It's the best thing that you can aspire to. It's the hardest thing to aspire to. It's the hardest thing to be devoted to. Every time you're not fully devoted to that thing, you're betraying something by yourself and by the people that you love and represent. And so, yeah, kudos to Mom on that one. Yeah, that what if thing. Yeah, if you like, I can't even imagine being human and not doing the what if game.
Right.
Like what are you doing in this world and failing at the what if game?
Right.
You're you're failing at the most fundamental level. It's God damn, I don't even know how you're stepping onto the court in a uniform with a number if you don't even get the what if game. Okay, back to you.
No, that's
sorry. I'm passionate about that one.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely, and so are we. The what if gene it's a critical part of what people do or don't do in their daily lives that cause them to make mistakes and fuck things up on a regular basis because you didn't consider what if. What if this pole isn't long enough? What if it's not going to hold my weight? What if, what if the machinery breaks down? What are we going to do then? It's about thinking in the future, planning ahead, considering all options. It's a way of being cognitively aware of your surroundings and the possibilities that are going to come along and fuck up whatever project you got going on.
I'm going to say I sort of use the what if option. Yeah, I use it for those practical things, but I also use it in determining whether something explains what I see. If I hear somebody say something, I'll say, what if that were true? Would things look the way they do if that was true? So, yeah, I use the what if for that purpose quite a lot.
When I was a kid, I grew up in the computer age when computers were being invented and being distributed and being sold to homes, people, and the first. I had a Texas Instruments. Okay, I had one of the very first home computers you could ever have. I had a Texas Instruments, and then I had a Commodore 64, which is literally the next generation of the very first home computers. And you had to hook it up to your TV, and you had floppy disks and shit like that.
Yep.
And when I was a teenager, and I was learning how to do computer code, and back in the old days, I was learning how to write the very simple computer codes. Okay, and the main thing that you learned back then, and I don't know how it is today, but there were statements that you had to create for the computer to understand.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
And the statements are called if then.
Then, yes.
If this happens, then you do that.
Yep.
If I type this, then you do that. If then.
Yep.
It's another version of the what if, right? It's an if.
Yep.
It's an undiscriminate, intangible thought process that has to occur in order to predict potential.
Yes.
Okay. Any more thoughts? And I'll move forward. I got a couple of notes on some news and shit. I've got a Wolfgang Halbig update for anybody who's interested.
Go for it.
Wolfgang Halbig was
Let's go to
sued.
Wolfgang Halbig. I'm hip. No, I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good with.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not mocking.
Wolfgang Halbig was being sued by Lenny Posner. Okay, and I'll just say this. I know that most people watching, listening probably are aware, but for those who are not, Lenny Posner is the father of Noah Posner, the little boy who died in Sandy Hook.
Yeah, alleged father of alleged victim.
Alleged father of alleged boy who died in Sandy Hook, who allegedly
husband of alleged.
Yep.
Who allegedly died in a school that was allegedly open at the time.
Right.
Anyway,
yes.
For those who don't know, Noah Posner, the young boy, his picture showed up 2 years later in Pakistan school shooting.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And it was plastered all over billboards and news, and it was on the fucking podium of the mother who cried about her son. And we all went, wait the fucking second.
Yeah.
That kid died is the exact fucking photograph.
He's died twice.
It was the exact photograph.
It was.
This is not
it
a
was
conspiracy theory. Jesus Christ. Okay, so anyway, Wolfgang Halbig was being sued. He was being dragged into court by Lenny Posner, the guy who was supposedly responsible for striking channels. How I See the World, our friend Robin has had a lot of trouble with his channel over this character, Lenny Posner. Anyway, the point is, Wolfgang, they had a court date, and we were all anticipating what was going to happen. Well, guess what? Mr. Lenny Posner didn't fucking show up for court.
Of course not.
Amazing.
Okay. So before I lose the thread, I have been following the Able Danger guys.
Okay.
I think they, for all of
Field
the
McConnell, Able Danger.
Yeah, for all of the circuitous language that they do, I think I'm going to chalk it up to I kind of get what they're doing. All I'm trying to do is drill down to the, chew the skin, chew the meat, crunch the bone. And if the marrow is the marrow, then, get down to the marrow to sort of like, mix a metaphor there. What is up? So have you all followed that whole idea around, or the reports around Marines swarming Langley? Have you come across that?
The Marines surrounding Langley?
Yeah.
No, tell me about it.
That.
Okay. All right. So, wow. Okay. So evidently, we're talking about an operation that might have involved, upwards of 1,000 or 2,000 Marines doing a sort of representational or symbolic or gestural attack around CIA headquarters in Langley, at Langley. Yeah. Over the last couple of days.
Okay.
So, yeah. And of course, right, being in the sort of like conspiratorial journalistic spheres that we're in, what's real, what's not, what's false, what's not, what's fake, what's not, anyway, I'm actually surprised that this didn't hit y'all's radar. It's kind of a big event. Maybe it's so big that it stayed off your radar.
Lady Zaga said apparently the CIA was raided by the Marines.
That's kind of the story. That's the narrative. and listening to those guys, you know, they're trying to hash it out, going, okay, did they land? Did they raid, or was it a symbolic gesture? Like the idea of they show up and they tell you that they could raid if they wanted to, and then you'd be in deep shit, you know, like a threat, like
a coup.
Yeah, Anyway, it's interesting. I don't pretend to be anybody who has any sort of like deeper insight to anybody else, except for the idea that I'm hip to some stuff and I know what I like to pay attention to, because I think that it runs deeper than other stuff. But other than that, you know, I could be duped as easily as anybody else, depending on how sophisticated the the operations are. Not to be too ambiguous about it, but it's this idea around, you know, maybe some signals are being sent by white hats to black hats, right? Do with that whatever you want, right? I kind of want to believe that for every black hat, there's a white hat.
Well, for every black hat, there's 10 white hats.
I can't believe that everybody in every position of authority is automatically an evil motherfucker. I know where I've been. I know what my attitudes are. I know who I've dealt with. I know that how people looking from the outside would want to lump me in one way or the other, depending on their knowledge and ignorance. They could, you know, and they could come up with their own narratives and sell them, you know, well or not well to anybody. Sorry, I'm getting out. I'm a Taoist. Sorry. It's all about.
One thing that I want to say about this, I did do a little search and noticed that, interestingly, although there are articles about this incident places around the web, I do note that 0 of them are, I would consider, mainstream media. I mean, there's no ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, nothing. It's all like Blogspot and, you know, various personal blogs, but there's nothing out there in the mainstream. And second of all, I think about these things, and there have been so many, you know, like when Anonymous, for example, first came out, I was really hopeful. And of course, I got very disappointed. And there have been other people, you know, Ron Paul, he's the, oh, wait a minute, no, he's just one of them, you know, and on and on and on. I get to the point where I see these things going, oh, goody, the good guys are, and then I think, I wonder if this is just something that was developed for the web. Because, I mean, for example, we know that mainstream media didn't really cover the Malheur thing very much until fairly late in the game before they even brought it up. But it was definitely a web-based psyop that was run. So I think to myself, maybe this is that too. I have to give that some probability.
Me too. I'm looking at that angle too, right? And that is like what's the term? Fog of war, right? The fog of war.
Yeah.
That's a psychological operation. That term by itself is in of itself a psychological operation.
Right.
It implants within the subconscious the concept that war is a fog, it's a blur, and we can't figure this shit out. So you're just going to have to go with whatever we tell you.
Right. And it both is and isn't.
Right.
So
there is some truth to it. That's right.
Therein lies its strength.
Right.
And so, like the work of a light warrior is the hardest work imaginable, because it's like my sword. Like when I'm wielding my sword and cutting away at the fog, like as I cut away at the fog, am I hurting the fog? Like, am I doing a fucking damn thing to the fog? Right? Like, is this the thing to do at all?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, I'm fighting a fog. Well, let me run back to take cover and wait until there's not a fog to fight, until there's something tangible to fight instead of a fog. It's yeah. I mean, I go back to that thing that I posted that y'all are hip to is that idea of like our disinformation campaign will be successful when
the American people, when everything they believe is false.
Right.
It was William Casey.
Yep.
Yes. Right.
CIA director.
So just that idea in and of itself is a weapon. Of like, okay, I'm gonna hand that over to you, and say, put that in your mind, roll that over, which is like, you will never ever know what's going on, ever. No matter what you do, you're never gonna get it.
That's right. You know what? I've come to that conclusion on many occasions. It's disturbing. You have to tell yourself to just let it go, because you're never going to, like, for instance, we talk about these false flags and we pick them apart all the time. Vegas, for instance, any event, you pick an event, it doesn't matter. We'll never get to the bottom. We'll never know for sure all the gory, gruesome, juicy details, who did it, why, when, names, history. We'll never ever get to the bottom. One thing we do know for sure is it's bullshit. But there's at least that. We can at least run with that. It's bullshit. It's not something to sink your emotions. It's not something to invest your emotional energy into.
And yet we do, right? and if we do, we have to come to terms with what is it that made us do, right? Well, and then it always comes back to, it's always a mirror coming back to us, going, what is it about me that made me want to invest my time in this? Is it about my own ego? Do I really care about humanity? Do I really want what's best for people? Do I want people to think that I want what's best for people? It's
stuff that question. I already know for sure I want the best for humanity.
Yeah.
I've just never had to ask that question.
Okay, so are you guys familiar with ElsaGate?
No.
That brings back that rings some bells. That rings some bells.
Well,
refresh memory.
Unfortunately, we're getting close to the third hour. We're going to maybe have to do a few minutes of overtime. ElsaGate, for those who don't know, ElsaGate is a reference to the cartoon or animated character known as Elsa, who is the main character in the movie Frozen, the kids movie. Okay. Yep. So if you got kids, you know Elsa.
Yeah. That's my jam.
ElsaGate is a thing happening on YouTube right now because a lot of truth channels, I almost jumped on this bandwagon. I was about to make a video just the other day. I think Mark and from Global Agenda, I just turned him onto it 2 days ago. He hadn't even been aware of it. and now I'm pretty sure he's in the process of making a video on it. And I don't have time to go into detail right now and show screen shares, but there are YouTube channels, and we should do this on a show soon, very soon. If you got kids, for the Christ's sakes, take the fucking tablet away from them. Get your kids. Yeah. Do not allow the internet to be your babysitter, because your kids are being groomed for pedophilia. Your kids are being groomed for violence, disobedience, coprophagia, coprophilia. And if you don't know those two words, go back to my old show where we talked about the Pope. I think the title of that show was Holy Shit. Because the Pope came out. Francis came out. I think it was after Trump. And forgive me, I don't remember the subject specific he was talking about. Oh, fake news. We're talking about fake news. When fake news was all the rage. The fucking Pope had something to say about fake news. And he said people consume, they engage in coprophilia and coprophagia. It has to do with shit.
Yeah.
Eating shit and consuming shit.
Yep.
Which on its surface, to me, was disturbing that the Pope would even know the definition. I had to look up coprophagia.
Oh, come on. Wait. The Pope? The head of the Vatican? You're surprised?
Well, yes and no. Okay.
This to me. Yes and no. No, but this is their niche.
I know.
Market,
I know. I really do. I know.
Their
on the surface, you would think, why would the Pope even be familiar? Who the fuck knows what? Does anybody know what coprophilia is? Ask anybody. But listening to the sound of my voice, go up to your friends and neighbors.
Sorry. The Latin term for it, the sophisticated academic term for it, doesn't fucking matter. The reality is the reality. And everybody on the planet knows what shit eating and shit worshiping is on a visceral level.
Well, okay, well, I'll tell you what. Go up to any friend or any neighbor. Do this as an experiment. Go ask anybody you know, hey, do you know what the definition of coprophilia is? Have you ever heard of the word coprophagia? And can you tell me what that means? Because I'll tell you, one of them means that you eat shit or consume shit, and the other one means that you get a sexual arousal from shit.
Right. We can.
I'm a smart guy, and I've got a big vocabulary. I didn't fucking know what those words were. Thank you.
No, but it doesn't matter if you know the tech. Here's my point. My point is, you get the concept when you learn that there's an academic term for it. You go, this has been known by intellectuals.
Yeah.
Right? But you know in your bones that it doesn't matter what the intellectuals have admitted to knowing or not knowing. You get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
What I'm saying, right? Sorry, I get passionate about that
kind of creepy ass
dichotomy of the using of the mind against the mind.
Yeah.
It's the severity and the sinister nature of the crime of the heart against the heart, the mind against the mind, the heart against the mind, the mind against the heart, is such black magic to me. It's so reprehensible.
Yeah.
It's so despicable. It's so clever and awful and so effective that I marvel at its
well, there's this thing running around the internet on YouTube right now called Elsagate. And it has to do with these YouTube channels that are geared for kids. And there's a whole section called YouTube Kids. And if you got a little kid and you give them the tablet and they turn on YouTube and they go to some channel called Finger Family Fun Time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There's a whole network, and I do mean network. This is undeniable, unmistakable. The network is as clear as a fucking bell. All these channels are tied together. Most of them are run by the same entity or person or group because they use the same titles. They use the same animations.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're creepy as fuck.
Very.
So anybody who's listening to me right now, if you got kids and you're curious, just go to YouTube, type in Elsa Gate, ELSA Gate, and see what's being said about this fucking creepy pedophilia, coprophagia, grooming channels where your kids will sit and they sound like cartoons. They have all the animated sounds and sound effects embedded. So if you're a parent and you give your kid your tablet and you say, get out of my hair for a few minutes, and you're listening, but you're not watching, you're listening to these sound effects that sound like Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner going at it. You don't realize your kid is watching these animated cartoon characters drinking alcohol, pissing and shitting in this fucking swimming pool, swimming in the swimming pool after someone pisses and shits in the swimming pool. Okay? Creepy, weird, pedophilia, coprophilia. Your kids are being fucking groomed. It's beyond fucking disgusting. But here's the thing. Here's why I bring it up. We had Jim Fetzer on last year, and I asked Jim in my first interview with him, and I said, Jim, are we making a difference? All of us researchers and truthers, truth tellers and channels, are we making a difference? Well, it seems we might be making a difference. Number one, we're getting shut down and demonetized and censored left and right. So there's evidence number one. Here's another strong evidence that we're making a difference, because a lot of truth channels are exposing Elsa Gate, and they have been for the last couple of weeks or months. Now, I see a headline yesterday, headline on the tube, on the boob tube, the television. The headline is, YouTube is strengthening controls on content inappropriate for kids. So maybe a tiny glimmer of hope, a tiny light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we're making a difference. So we'll see where this goes.
Well, maybe we're making a difference. Maybe we're making a difference, or maybe they're giving us the impression that we're making.
Okay. On that note, Amy, thank you. Here's a good segue. Maybe they're giving us the impression, and we will see. Only time will tell. But here's the thing. This other thing I want to talk about real quick is this sexual misconduct balloon that has exploded.
Right.
Everyone's being accused, from actors to congressmen. Okay. The list is enormous right now. I wish I'd have been keeping track from the beginning, because the list is huge right now. The latest is, let me see here. The Olympic doctor, the doctor who was handling Olympic athletes, who was accused, he pleaded guilty in his court case. A lawyer says Congressman John Conyers will not resign after sex scandal. I got another one. Congressman Joe Barton apologizes for online nude selfie. Okay, so is this a limited hangout? And if you don't know,
it is.
You know the term limited hangout?
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you why.
This is where they give us little breadcrumbs, and it's like, hey, we're doing our job. They eat their own. They throw a few people under the bus.
I'll tell you why I think it's limited hangout. When people say Joe Barton, the first thing that pops into my mind is Joe Biden. And I'm sorry, we've got some really creepy stuff on that guy.
Oh yeah.
But is anybody stepping up and saying a word about him?
He doesn't even hide it.
No, he doesn't. And yet there's nobody saying he mauled me, he raped me, he did other
we got his ass on video trying to kiss little girls that are pulling away from him.
Exactly.
But
I mean, we have.
But then think about
Go ahead.
that. That's just one little sliver that we got to see. It's that it happened to be a little breadcrumb that was in the public sphere. Now the thing is deep and deep and deep and tragic and tragic and tragic. We have to obviously go with the things that sneak out, right? But I think that the controllers of leakage do it in a way that they're going to do it in a way that they think that we can handle it and minimize it.
Let me just address this question or comment from Broadsword real quick. He said Disney and Marvel must have something to do with Elsa and Spider-Man pedo vids, or they'd have them with copyright infringement. N'est-ce pas? I guess that's he's. Don't read French.
That's French. It means
yeah, okay, I understand. It just I don't read it very well, and it just seemed where I had to stop and think about it. N'est-ce pas? Okay, so the thing about ElsaGate is the reason it's called ElsaGate is because these videos, these channels that have these grooming videos where your kids are watching little animated characters drink alcohol, piss and shit in the pool, piss and shit on the couch and on the chair and all that stuff, the creepy stuff. The reason it's called ElsaGate is because you'll usually find Elsa in the title because they're clickbait for children. They see, oh, Elsa. They see, oh, Spider-Man. And there's no copyright infringement because the characters are not visually, they're recreated. They're not taken from Marvel. They're not taken from Disney. So there's really ultimately no copyright infringement.
Right.
But you'll see Spider-Man and Elsa in the title, and that's why it's called ElsaGate, because it's almost always Elsa. That's a big attractor for little kids. Elsa, I want to watch that video next. And mom's not watching, but she hears the cartoon sounds and she thinks everything's fine. But the little girl is watching animated characters pissing, just doing wild, creepy, wacky, ghastly things. Thank you.
Yes.
So this thing that hit my radar very badly, right? So I'm a submarine. I'm cruising around, the Pacific Ocean. The radar starts blipping. Oh, that's not a regular blip. That thing's a huge blip. Is the term misopedia, misopedia, right? So I was thinking this idea of pedophilia, right? When you look at the etymology of that, it means the love of children. I go, okay, this stuff that we're talking about, these scenarios that we're talking about, has nothing to do with the love of children. I love my daughter. I actually love children and childrenness itself. I want to protect and love and secure and protect the idea of childhood innocence. That's like that's what pedophilia should mean. It should mean the love of children, and yet this is that linguistic subversion. This is all part of a grander, magical black magic psyop that is only so sinister if you can get past that layer and that layer and that layer and that layer. But in order to boil it, bring it back down, anchor it in some way, is this idea of misopedia, which is by definition the hatred of children, and misanthropy.
It's the innocence. We talked about this.
Hatred of human, right?
We talked about this. It's not so much children specifically; it's the innocence that children hold.
Yeah.
Innocence of the children.
But yes. But misanthropy is the hatred of humans. So how can humans hold the hatred of humans? And then what's even more extreme than that is the hatred of young humans at their most vulnerable, at their most innocent, which is misopedia, right? So the whole pedophilia thing. Okay, yes, I get it. It should be out there. It should be connecting to people. It should be touching hearts. And I get it that not everybody can handle a fucking stake through the heart. Somebody, the majority of people want to only deal with, a graze wound to the shoulder, and then, that woke me up to some bigger shit, I had a really bad flu one time, and then that made me realize that, all life is precious and valuable. Yeah, sure, great. But what I'm talking about is that kind of stuff that only the people with the iron stomachs can handle. The real warriors. That's why I teamed up with you folks, because you have the iron stomachs. You have the
fortitude.
Yes,
that's it.
You have the fortitude. That's why I didn't want to waste my time with anybody else who was going to slowly, take these kind of things that I said and gently sideline me in terms of, oh yeah, that's all well and good, but we want to talk about the
kitties. Yeah, we want to talk about nice
right.
The blue book invasion of alien kitten. Fuck that. I'm sorry, fuck that shit. Fuck that. We have real work to do. We actually have real work to do.
Yeah, fucking A, we have real work to do, and this Elsa Gate is something that really needs to be pounded home. And for anybody who has kids or cares about children, I don't have kids, but for some reason I've got a strong affinity to protect children. You know what I mean? When I see shit like Elsa Gate, that's the whole Pizzagate, the whole Pedo Gate thing, that really gets under my skin, big time.
Yes.
Even though I don't personally have children of my own. I feel a moral obligation to do the right thing, right?
And I don't need to get into moral like debates into where morality comes from, or is it God or is it not God, or
who cares?
Or who cares? Moral is moral.
That's right.
Ethical is ethical. If
I
you can't,
I know, and you're going to say ethics.
If you can't land on a stance, then if you'd rather argue something other than landing on the stance, then sorry, I'm not going to be mad at you, but come back around to something real. Because there's a war to be fought and a right to be fought for, and a correctness to be won. And if you don't stand up, well, we're just going to. I think I've had my eyes closed for like 15 minutes here as I talk about this, but that says something. I mean, this.
Well, I'll tell you what. We're 20 minutes into overtime. Let's go ahead and wrap this up before we get too passionate and start punching our computer screens.
Good thought.
Listen, this has been a really great conversation, and I do want to apologize. I had it in the description box that we were going to get into sacred geometry.
Yeah.
I really had no idea that article that my mom sent me was going to consume practically 2 freaking hours. But that was good stuff, man. Good conversation.
It's always good stuff. I think we got
Bart on the hook. He's not going anywhere. He's our new co-host. Welcome, Bart. We love you. We love what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Ian, we miss you. We love you. You're welcome anytime. Hopefully, we will see you Sunday. We have Annie Logical coming up this Sunday. For those who are just tuning in this Sunday, in 2 days, we got Annie Logical. We're talking about 5G, AI, all that creepy shit. And
at 3 p.m. Eastern.
That's right. Special time.
8 p.m. Greenwich Mean.
Circa Mean. Sorry.
So, listen, Lady Zaga and Allison Twist and Greatest Potential and all of our regulars, we love you all. Blue Blood Guitar, Karen McCardle, and if I don't mention your name, I'm sorry. Broadsword. I'm just scanning through.
It's a me coffee.
Space. Sons and Daughters of Liberty was here.
Can I jump in here? Sorry, Aaron.
Extreme Truther is in our chat. Hey, dude. I'm not sure if you've been in our chat before, but cool to see you. Go ahead, Bart.
Greatest Potential and Lady Zaga. I keep seeing them. I keep watching their comments. They're 2 of my favorites.
GP is awesome.
I wanted to shout them out in terms of who's standing out to me. That's
cool. We
that
got
doesn't mean
people, man. We definitely got
other
good
people aren't standing out. I'm just saying those two hit me up. I would love to take it offline with either of you two.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bart, before we leave, why don't you drop your email in the chat, or if they want to contact you directly, they can certainly go to your channel and talk to you on YouTube messages. Look, if you got a wrench, I love you.
YouTube channel.
That's awfully rude, white chocolate. I need to give you a wrench. Amy, would you go get me that URL so I could do that real quick? Awfully Rude White Chocolate has been around for a while. He comments a lot, and it's first time in the chat. So welcome to Awfully Rude White Chocolate. He's usually leaves a lot of comments under the video. But if you got a wrench, I love you. And if I haven't mentioned your name, I'm sorry. I'm just scanning the chat real fast. But thank you, everybody, to your contributions in the chat. Thank you for your little gem drops of information. It's always nice to see regulars. Karen McCardle, did I give you a wrench? I think I did. I'm way back in the older part of the chat. Greatest Potential, Broadsword, Illusion Shattered. Just everybody that's been in the chat. Thanks to everybody. And one more time, we do love you, Bart. You're here for a reason. And welcome our new co-host, Bart. You guys, hope you like him because you're going to be seeing a lot of him.
Like it or not.
That's right.
And Bart, you're the guy running our promo, our intro and outro. So.
Shit! I gotta get the promo shit. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna let off the hook here because I got to pee so bad.
No, you got a job now, bro. You got shit to do.
We did the outro.
All right, so I'm just gonna scan the chat if there's anybody I didn't mention. We do like to give props to our folks. I haven't seen in a while. I haven't seen Juxtapose. I haven't seen Zach Juxtapose. Oh, Zach Hawkins was in here earlier. He's my buddy in Georgia. Killendale, that's right. We're gonna see Killendale.
Yeah, Killendale and
that's a good dude right there. Killendale's a good dude.
Some great conversations offline. I am really enjoying his company through the wires, through the set of tubes that is the internet.
The set of the tubes, right? What was that congressman that said that? It's a bunch of tubes.
It's just a bunch of tubes. Yeah, he's wonderful.
I forget who that was. Wasn't that
old guy, man?
Oh.
Old guy.
Don't worry.
I know who it was. It was.
No, don't waste your brain energy on thinking about some old white dude who said some shit.
Extreme Truther.
The vice president. What?
Spiro Agnew.
Yeah, that's it. No, I don't think it was.
Let me just say this real quick, just in case. Extreme Truther, if you're still listening or if you're not, whatever. He said, I do hope people realize that Pizzagate was put out there by the pedos themselves. They want people to know. I totally fucking agree. Again, we covered the term. It's called a limited hangout, where they expose a few of their lower levels. They throw some people under the bus. And at the same time, they do want it to be known. They want people to know. And our friend Dominic, our UK Dominic, who was in here earlier, he has said, and he's correct, and I've already seen the proof of it, that they're trying to legalize, they want to legalize pedophilia. And was it Germany that just recently, this week or this month, that lowered the age of consent to 14? You guys heard that one?
Yeah, I think I did hear that. Yes,
and that one for next time for me.
Absurd.
I think it was Germany that just lowered the age of consent. If I'm wrong about the country, I'm sorry.
All right.
But somebody somewhere just lowered the age of fucking sexual consent to 13.
You got to let me know. I'm about to pee my pants. If you're gonna talk for another 5 minutes, we're good.
All right.
If you want me to run the outro, then let me.
Let's go ahead and wrap this up so Bart doesn't have an accident.
Okay.
He needs to go to the little boys' room. So everybody, love you, thank you, and we will see you Sunday at 3:00 p.m. Eastern Time. We got Anti-Logical. Love to everybody. Go Bart.
Love always.
And by the way, I'm going over to Jerry Chilulu's hangout. Go over to Jerry. Go over to Hive Live. If you guys want more stimulating conversation, go over to Jerry Cthulhu channel. Hive Live.
Yeah, not Chilulu.
I always pronounce it wrong.
Chalupa.
That's the old one.
All right, go Bart, go. We're out of here. Bye, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Turn your volume up.
Can't tell me what to do. With this one, right? Come here.